Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Remember to speak into the microphone, as this meeting is being recorded for public record. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the June Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee meeting. We are in the midst of a absolutely beautiful, though a little bit hot summer, but we're getting into the swing of things. Our second FERC meeting in the past couple of weeks. We're in the midst of going through our budget process. So why don't we go ahead and get things kicked off? I know we have a pretty jam-packed and busy agenda here. Mr. CFO, I'll turn it over to you, then Mr. City Attorney, and then we'll get into the agenda.
Good morning. Today's meeting of the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee has been scheduled in a hybrid format with a quorum of the committee physically present and remaining members, staff, and members of the public appearing either in person or virtually via Zoom. In order to participate in today's meeting virtually, members of the public may dial 1-888-475-4499 and enter the webinar ID, which is 863-6059-5462 #, or log into the Zoom app and enter the webinar ID, which again is 863-6059-5462. Any individual wishing to speak on an item must click the raise hand icon if they are using the Zoom app, or dial *9 if you are participating by phone.
Thank you. We have a few notes. We have a few deferrals. OB2, OB5, NB1, NB2, NB5, NB8, NB17, NB21 are all deferred to the July July FERC meeting. The following two items are linked if heard: NB4, NB14 on green roofs. That is all.
Okay, why don't we get started? We have a bunch of people that are visiting us from one of our prized cultural institutions, the Rhythm Foundation Bandshell. NB20, Mr. CFO, can we get started here?
Yes. NB20, discuss an amendment to the Rhythm Foundation agreement with the City of Miami Beach for the management of the Miami Beach Bandshell to include a 9-year management agreement extension and an increase in the annual funding contribution provided by the city to be considered during the FY 2026 budget process, NB20.
All right. And if members of the Rhythm, whoever wants to be the key spokesperson, unless it's a group effort, please feel free to come on up.
All right, good morning. John Rebar, Parks and Recreation Director. And yes, as Jason explained, we're here in front of you today. We're recommending a 9-year extension to the contract. From Parks and Recreation standpoint, they have really Rhythm Foundation has really transformed the bandshell to just an amazing cultural space for the community, for the local region, and for our guests, for our visitors. And we fully support an extension, and we also support a financial increase that would just bring them up to CPI. They did not receive full CPI over the term of their contract, and we'd also recommend truing that up, whatever the appropriate CPI would be for the years that they did not receive it. But I believe Adam is here, and he'd like to talk a little bit about the Rhythm Foundation.
Yeah, and just to get started with some elementary items, when we talk about topping up for CPI, can we talk about essentially the baseline, what we're providing now per year, what the staff's recommendation is, and what Rhythm Foundation's ask is?
Yes. Are you going to cover some of the financials, or do you want me to get into it?
All right, however you like, man. I got it all.
Okay, I think you have it all handy, so
Yes,
I'm going to jump in because I know he prepared a nice presentation, and I'll jump in with anything.
Before we get into the merits of the Rhythm Foundation, full disclosure, I think when we were going through the election campaign, we were asked what our favorite cultural institution is, and my answer was the Rhythm Foundation. I think you all do tremendous to that community. It is accessible, whether I want to bring my 8-year-old daughter, myself, or my 72-year-old parents. It is a welcoming, inclusive, and great place for all. As the Club World Cup and the World Cup come up, I'm reminded of last summer where we had that fabulous community activation for the Copa America, and we fared much better than Hard Rock Stadium did for the final. So.
We most certainly did, and thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have prepared a brief presentation for the committee this morning. I also have some letters of support that I'd like to, if I may, approach the dais to.
Take off?
Yeah, I brought a copy.
And
for each of the members.
I'll be blunt, right? I think everybody loves the Rhythm Foundation.
Thank you.
Truly. And I don't want to speak for everybody, but I will. We are, this will just come down to how supportive can we be from a financial perspective. I'll kind of show my cards. I have no problems renewing a lease very early, right? I understand that you have some CapEx commitments that you need to commit to, and having a longer-term agreement in place is going to help you be committed to that. That's elementary, fundamental, and I want to help you achieve that. It just comes down to what type of funding we're able to get. We're being pulled by each and every angle in here, so let's go ahead and see what we can do.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and we certainly appreciate the support and the recognition, and we're so happy to have you and your daughter and your mother over with us at the band shell. To answer your question from earlier, we currently receive $51,158. This is a contribution from the city towards the operations of the venue. It's separate from program funding, which comes through the Office of Tourism and Culture, as well as for one big program that comes through the Parks Department.
Sorry, if you don't mind, we'll just be interactive and informal.
Sure.
And do we fund, Lizette, I don't know if you have it, or Adam, if you have it, feel free to answer. Do we fund through Tourism and Culture kind of on a yearly basis for the programming?
Yes, we do receive some funding for the, thank you, Lizette. We receive grant funding for our organization, and then some funding that's tied specifically to programs.
Okay, let's quantify that per year. Let's just use the last couple of years if you have that handy.
Sure, I don't have it with me, but good morning, Mr. Chair, committee members, Lisa Afragante, Director of Tourism and Culture. So through the Cultural Arts Council grant program, the Rhythm Foundation receives an average about $30,000 to $32,000 a year. In addition to that, through the North Beach Social, our Culture Crop program, they provide free programming every third Thursday of the month. And we also do Arts in the Parks. It's also below, I believe, below $25,000 that they receive. So,
okay. So in general, about all in from the city, about 100,000
is a little under 60,000.
yes, correct.
Yeah.
And so
Just from tourism and culture, and then we have the kind of general fund. So about 100,000, 110,000 per year. Yeah.
yep, that's the right ballpark. So if we could go to the presentation, please, Maestro. Thank you very much. You know, we thank you all for joining us for considering our item this morning. You know, our MO and the key to our success, the success of the Miami Beach Band Shell, is the long-standing, trusted, and harmonious partnership with the city. That is ultimately the most valuable thing to us. That's the most important thing to our success. So this, the point of this brief presentation this morning is to outline the return on investment for the city that's made possible through this partnership. So I'm going to keep it very brief. I'm going to outline the ROI in three main buckets. The first one is around economic impact. The second is about quality of life and community benefits. And the third is around shaping the public image of the city. So if we can go to the next slide, please. Thank you. The band shell is an economic driver of North Beach. This slide shows the growth of our economic impact. This is estimated using the Arts and Economic Prosperity Calculator. This is a tool that is published by a group called Americans for the Arts. It's the leading national advocacy group for nonprofit arts and culture. It's a widely accepted model, and it is very conservative in its estimations. So by this conservative estimate, last year, the work at the band shell directly contributed about $6.5 million of economic impact into our neighborhood. We attract about 80,000 people to the band shell per year. A substantial majority of those people are from outside the city of Miami Beach. Those people bring with them their dollars. They pay for parking, they visit the the restaurants and other local businesses. You'll see in that stack of letters of support that I handed to you, the first one there is a letter from Blossom. That's a fantastic pizza place. It's about a block and a half from the band shell, but we also enjoy the strong support of Sasson Burgers and Shakes and Sushi Bichi. It's also important to note that one of the other ways that we're contributing to the local economy is by nature of the fact of being a desirable amenity. It's not a coincidence that every new development that's coming up in North Beach lists the Miami Beach Bandshell as one of the principal amenities of the neighborhood, and thus we contribute to the property value and thus the tax base of the city. So go to the next slide, please, and you can stop me at any time if you have any questions. The Bandshell supports quality of life in the North Beach neighborhood. That is principally through our community programs. These are shows and programs that are free and open to the public. We had 42 of them last season with approximately 23,000 attendees. All of these are either produced or sponsored by the Rhythm Foundation, meaning that if it were not for our work or the investment of our dollars that we raise independently, or we pull from our general fund, they wouldn't happen. There's an estimated value here for these programs of around $575,000. We also have, starting new this season, we launched a program that we called Senior Days, where once a month we hand out free tickets to Miami Beach seniors for a wide variety of shows in the coming months. Since October, when we launched this program, we've given out 562 tickets to 56 different shows. There's an estimated value there of $25,000 in the face ticket of the value. Some other ways that we support the quality of life include environmental sustainability. We're a founding member of the Plastic Free MB initiative, and at last check, the Miami Beach Bandshell recycles more than the convention center in absolute terms here, so not even relative to our side. We also are a very active participant for beach cleanups and these kinds of community-led environmental programs. And then also, we have a slate of health and wellness programs that we continue to develop. These are things like yoga classes, yoga retreats, sound healing, and even participation in the Urban Fitness League, which you can watch our episode that was filmed on. It's on Tubi. It was originally aired on one of the ESPNs, but now it's on the internet, available for free. It's actually really impressive. Next slide, please. And as arts and culture, that also includes sports as part of this. This is an image from the Copa America screening that you referenced in your earlier comments, Mr. Chair. We are very much recognized North Beach as soccer central, and whereas some other cultural venues may hesitate or balk at the participating in screening soccer games, we very much welcome it and are actively courting these opportunities.
No need to be passive aggressive with the New World Symphony. I'm totally in your corner.
Okay. Well, I'm not saying anybody's name.
I'm kidding.
Okay.
But I will push that forward. That's my passive aggressive way
Okay.
of telling the New World Symphony this is a tremendous cultural activation.
It really is. And at that, kind of fun fact here, for that Copa America screening of last year, we were the official AP virtual watch party that was viewed by over 4 million people worldwide. We can go to the next slide, please. And that takes us to the third bucket of our return on investment, which has to do with the Bandshell helping to shape the public perception and identity of the city of Miami Beach. So and that's primarily through our digital and media presence. We are increasingly producing culture-focused media programming that highlights Miami Beach as a center for the arts. That's happening on the international level with a distribution partnership that we have with a company called Quest. This is part of the Quincy Jones kind of network of businesses. They're based out of France, and their primary markets are Europe and the African continent. And nationally, with PBS. We are in development right now of a music program that is set to be distributed nationally on public television, and which will highlight, again, Miami Beach as this crossroads where all these incredible cultures from around the world meet and intersect. And then we have other fun stuff like this Super Bowl ad that we had earlier this year, where we were very, very intentional about centering Miami Beach in the narrative for that advertisement. And you can see the pool quote right there kind of illustrates that. This 30-second ad spot alone would be about $500,000 worth of marketing value. So we can go to the next slide. And so this is an image from a program that we did late last year called Infinity Machine. This is innovative. It's fresh. We're creating this wider perception of a welcoming and cosmopolitan city. If we can, and really put into use this great technology that's been invested into the band shell over the course of the past few years. If we can go to the next slide. So in 2024, we engaged AMS, which is a national consulting firm that the city is working with separately on other arts and culture related projects. We engaged them to do a report on the Rhythm Foundation, to look into the Rhythm Foundation. This was part of the succession planning that preceded my appointment as the executive director of the organization. And these were some of the key findings from that study. One, that our compensation levels were below market value, that we received disproportionately low city support relative to peer groups, both locally and nationally. And third, and most importantly, that we very much punch above our weight, meaning that we deliver outsized results for the amount of investment that we receive. This has been made possible through a very efficient operation. So we do a lot with a little. The county average for nonprofits, their administrative, the ratio of their administrative to their total costs is around 35 to 40%. That's in the same range as the national average. Rhythm Foundation is in the low 20s on that same ratio. If we can go to the next slides. These slides are not meant to, I should say, they're not meant to disparage any of our fellow cultural anchors, but they're only meant to be illustrative of the broader point that I'm making. On the left here, you'll see the line item city budget support for 23 and 24 for 3 cultural anchors. On the right, you'll see the actual attendance figures of those organizations. I think the point here is sort of self-evident. And then we can also look at this from the perspective of the county, if we can go to the next slide, in comparing ourselves to the Moss Center, which is at the South Dade Cultural Arts Center, and the Arts Center, and you can see the relative figures there. So we are incredibly grateful and thankful for the consideration of this item. We appreciate the vote of confidence and support from the part of the city, and we look forward to a long, continued, trusted and harmonious partnership with the city. And that concludes my part of this part of the presentation. I'd like to welcome former Mayor Kasdan to come say a few words as well.
Thank you. Good morning, Neeson Kasdan. I'm here as a Rhythm Foundation board member. I want to be respectful of your time. You have a long agenda. But I do want to add a little additional color to the request here. First, let me start with James Quinlan and his wife Laura, who founded the Rhythm Foundation 37 years ago. They have been bringing a broad array of popular music to this city for almost as long as anyone I know, and have been a unique forum for emerging artists to be able to progress in their careers. The statistics and the Adams presentation tell it all. And by the way, you all know the Rhythm Foundation. You know what it does. You know the community it serves. There's nothing I can say that you don't already know about what they do. But my main point is that we truly get more bang for the buck in terms of serving broader audiences in this community. It is certainly the cultural anchor for North Beach. And if any organization merits an enhanced level of support, even with consideration for the serious economic times we're in, and I respect this committee and the commission and the administration for wanting to be fiscally prudent. I get that. But this is an organization that if anyone gets bang for the buck and serves the citizens of our community, it's this. I'll end by saying one thing. At this point in my career, I've been trying to get off as many boards as I can, and I've been pretty successful, unless they're paying boards, of course. But when James Quinlan called me and asked if I would help, when I look at his and Laura's life's body of work in this community, and what the work that the Rhythm Foundation does, and the product that they produced, I couldn't say no. And that's why I'm here today on behalf of them. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Bott.
How did you know I had some thoughts on this matter?
Could have asked if you liked if it was sunny outside, you'd have a lot of thoughts.
No. Listen, everyone knows that I'm a huge fan of this organization. Even before I was an elected official, I was a fan of this organization and spent time there, a lot of time there. I know that we have some very serious financial rough weather ahead, and we are being very mindful of that. But I was shocked and slightly offended when I saw the administration's recommendation of a $20,000 bump. And I respect where it comes from, but it is comical to me when you look at the numbers of what this organization delivers to the community and to the city, that we would just make them whole on CPI. Like, that is for sure. That's where we should start. We had a FERC committee meeting a month ago, 2 months ago, I don't remember, where we talked about allocating $100,000 to do an ephemeral lighting event for Halloween in a different part of the city. And the cost was driven by the number of projectors that we would need. And I'm not against doing ephemeral holiday events, but I'm thinking if we're spending $100,000 for that for one evening, wouldn't we be better served to find $100,000 to invest in this economic engine? I've gone to so many events at North Beach, at the Bandshell, in the evening, in the middle of the week, festivals over the weekend, and I hear people speaking every possible language, people coming from all over South Florida. One of my favorite quotes was, it was over the course of a 3-day festival, there's like some bro there, kind of a surf.
Easy there, Tanya.
No, different kind of bro. It's okay. Not a Joe bro. Like a surf bro. He's like, dude, I don't even know where I am. Like, is this even Miami? Where is this? It's awesome. This is the best festival I've ever been to. And I'm like, yeah, right on. North Beach is emerging finally from this cocoon, if you will, to put it generously. We've got, in my view, overdevelopment that is coming in, but it's coming. There's nothing we can do about it. We have flourishing new businesses driven by the Normandy Fountain Business Association that are organically occurring and not chains. We have people investing in their existing businesses. Why would we put the brakes on this? You saw from the slides, this is only a fraction of the data of them punching above their weight, of them driving the brand that we have been working so hard to pivot towards successfully, almost organically. You know, Adam and I had a conversation recently about the community events, which are fabulous. I don't remember the number, it was 60, 50 a year?
It's about 40.
40, okay,
give or take.
so one almost every week, which is pretty good. And the Rhythm Foundation takes a loss doing those. I know that there's funding besides this line item, and there's funding from Lisette's department and John's department, and I get that, but they take a loss on every single one of those events. So sure, we can give them 20 grand to round them up for their CPI, but those events are going to be the first to go because those are discretionary. So that means that the people who can go and see art and culture and hear live music and experience what this is all about will be the ones punished. And so the other part that really makes me uncomfortable is that if we do this extension, which I'm all for obvious reasons, that means that they can't even really ask for an increase for another decade. And $20,000 a year in a decade from now is pocket change. So, if 200,000 is too rich for our blood this year, perhaps that is something we take into account. But I would suggest no less than 100,000 this year, with an option to renegotiate in 5 years when we are hopefully through this difficult period and on the upswing.
It's pretty funny because sometimes personally you and I joke about we think alike on a lot of things, despite us in some areas being polar opposites. But I have in my notes here an X amount bump, extend the full term of the lease, but come back in 3 years to look at the city's commitment with a minimum base amount of what's agreed upon here today. Commissioner.
I think when we passed the GeoBond Culture Fund, what was it, $160 million, we made a serious commitment to arts and culture infrastructure and to not give adequate operating help. Doesn't make sense. Now, that said, I support what Commissioner Bott is saying, if that's the agreement that we're coming to. I do think, though, that we need to look overall at everything that we're funding with a recurring expense in arts and culture and say, how evenly is this distributed? Do you know what I mean? Because we really need to take a look at that. We've never done that as a group. And I think that would go a long way in seeing, what are we funding? I mean, how many cultural institutions are we funding, Jason? And do we even know what all of those amounts are? And could there be, some sort of redistribution? Because if not, we are getting ourselves into this inflated operating situation annually, and that is what is going to come back and eventually hurt us, because what we're doing is we're moving capital funds into operating, and we can't operate the city like that. So I would give this, you're talking about $100,000 total, or $100,000 in addition to what they're currently getting? What was
So the original ask was $200,000, and I would suggest instead of 20, we bump that up to 100.
So 100 plus the 50, so it would be 150?
Right, so that instead of being at 250, they'd be at 150, and then come back in 3 years to renegotiate.
I mean, I think that this is one of our most successful cultural institutions, and now that we're going national with the PBS, and if you look at amounts of other cultural institutions that we're funding, we could be giving more for other cultural institutions that aren't necessarily, performing as well. And I'm not saying that I want to cut funding from everybody. I just think that being fair and equitable. And as I was looking at, these different letters, I mean, of course, Blossom and those restaurants need the Rhythm Foundation because they're bringing in a steady stream of locals all the time. And I went to what was the light concert? What is it called? It's with Laura.
That was an original work that we commissioned that was called Seeing Differently, Hearing Differently. That was Laura Gould from the Miami Color Theory with a fantastic local band called Gold Dust Lounge.
Okay. So the night that I attended the Miami Color Theory event, I realized just how many residents frequent the band shell all the time. So it's not just a question of national PR like we're now getting with this, with PBS and some of these other institutions. And by the way, international, because I know that during the during the South Beach Jazz Festival, you guys were also filming that or recording it, and it was being broadcast in other countries, which I found really impressive.
That particular show was live streamed online, so available all around the world. And just to add some extra color here, last year we presented programs with artists from 25 different countries and in 9 different languages. So speaking towards the internationalism of the city of Miami Beach, having that being reflected in the programming.
So if the 100,000 is your motion, I'll second that motion, and hoping that.
Let's hear public comment. I think we have a few public comments.
Donald Worth, please unmute yourself. Donald, please unmute yourself.
Can you hear me now? Hello?
Yes. Thank you, Donald.
Hello?
Yes, thank
Can
you,
you
Donald.
hear me?
Go ahead.
My name's Don Worth, and I'm a resident at 1390 Ocean Drive. I'm also a board member of the Rhythm Foundation, and I was going to explain some facts to you about the organization, although I think Adam has already done it. The large number of people we have, the diverse audiences we have, and there's one thing that we really haven't done very well in our trajectory, and that's properly advocating with the city for a dependable base of operating support. As you know, we've asked for an additional $200,000, and you've seen the information that Adam has provided to you about AMS, the feasibility study, how we punch above our weight and our staff is underpaid and overworked. And I do think that if you called AMS and asked them about us, they'd probably tell you, I don't know how we do it. And I can tell you that a few months ago, as part of a performance review, I interviewed our staff, and they're exhausted from doing 10 to 12 events per month. We simply need more operating support. Meanwhile, as Tanya mentioned, I think it's frustrating to us when we see short-term events done by outside promoters receive much more funding than we get in a year. Honestly, we just wonder if we're being taken for granted. Oh, the Rhythm Foundation, they'll figure it out. They don't need the money. There's just one thing. Here's, I think, what I'd really like to tell you. I think, as you know, 10 years ago, the band shell was considered a white elephant, derelict. Working with the city, we're not just arts and culture now, we're a major new attraction recognized locally and globally. Nobody would have predicted this level of success. We got a track record. We do a lot with a little.
Thank you, Donald.
Now we want to do more. We've got a...
Daniel Seraldo, please unmute yourself.
Daniel, welcome. Go ahead and unmute.
Yes, hi, good morning, Commissioners. Daniel Seraldo, candidate for Miami Beach Commission Group 1. Before that, I was Executive Director of the Miami Design Preservation League, where we push, among other things, for the historic designation of the band shell at a time when its fate and that of the Byron Carlisle were uncertain. This was part of the North Beach Master Plan, which led to the creation of the CRA, as well as the largest historic designation in Miami Beach in 30 years, protecting hundreds of Miami modern MIMO buildings where many of our workforce housing residents reside. The Rhythm Foundation has given a new life to the band shell and has reinvigorated the historic neighborhood. James and Laura Quinlan have done an excellent job and deserve much of the credit for its success. In addition, Adam is doing a great job. He started toward the end of my tenure, and at the time I was the youngest executive director of the 16 cultural anchors in the city. Adam now has that wonderful honor, as he is slightly younger, and he's doing an excellent job and repping well for the next generation of leaders. He has also given me some very helpful fashion advice. The future of North Beach looks bright, and I urge full support for the historic Miami Beach band shell. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have one more?
Larry Schaefer, please unmute yourself.
Good morning, Larry Schaefer, 233 81st Street. I'm calling to support someone giving fashion advice to Daniel Seraldo as well. That was pretty funny. But I am calling to support the Rhythm Foundation. Mr. Quinlan, the slides that showed the investment we provide and the attendance that results, this is a huge win. Looking at this like an entrepreneur, you have a startup here that's proven itself. It's gotten through its first phase. It's programming lovely events that everyone loves at the band shell. And I look at this as saying, how can we go even beyond the band shell and increase the opportunities we can have with Rhythm Foundation by having them program events on the new Ocean Terrace Park that Raymond Jungles has provided. Maybe some of the free events can be out there on, there's a lovely pedestal. In addition, we have Altos Del Mar Park, which can also maybe be programmed once in a while with a concert in the park. So if you look at what we're doing with the Rhythm Foundation, they're like a startup and we are like a venture capitalist. And if you put in a little bit of money with them, they turn that into a lot more money. So I think that I don't have the specifics of what works on the numbers, but this is a business that works. We should invest in it. I like that the idea of having spectator sports. I also like to see Final Four college basketball, college football playoffs when Joe's Penn State and Nittany Lions are going to play. I'd like to see some active fitness uses inside the band shell, such as Kristen Smith and her Miami Beach Fit Camp coming in and conducting classes there when there aren't musical events, yoga, even Blue Zone community activities, and finally community use at the band shell. Local neighborhood associations like the Allison Park Neighborhood Association has already asked to use the band shell for community forums for candidates during election years and things like that. So I believe they deserve more money from Miami Beach, more money from Miami-Dade County. Thank you very much.
Excellent, thank you. And is that the entirety of public comment? Go ahead.
John, please unmute yourself.
It's a bad joke. It's John Wayne. This is Wayne Roberts, south of Fifth. Looking at the math, that 150,000 with the added 100,000 represents $2 per resident. I pay thousands of years a year in taxes. I can't think of a better use of revenue than that bench shell and the people that that volunteer for that creation that they've made in North Beach. I was flabbergasted when I went there in terms of the audience. It was people of the neighborhood and thousands of them, and that the maintenance of the property was excellent, and the performance was phenomenal. And it's to the average Joe. It's for the average person. And I loved it. I loved every piece of it. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mr. CFO.
Yes, so Chair, I think, just taking a couple of notes here about adding to a motion related to adding an option to renegotiate, I think in 5 years, and just mentioning it, so to moving us from the existing funding to a flat 150,000, is that what Commissioner Bott?
3 years. Renegotiate in 3 years.
You want 3 years, okay.
Where I'm going with this, we extend the lease for the full term.
Right, with an ability to renegotiate in 3 years.
Yes, but I also want to provide them certainty where this will be the floor.
Yeah, if it's
Right,
open
because
to
if it was a
renegotiation.
long-term lease, this would be the floor throughout. So it's only fair. I don't want them to have hung over their head. Oh, okay, there could be some upside here, but there could also be downside where we actually take away. So because we can't get
renegotiating in
them-
3 years and a possible increase.
Yes, just have the amount that we agree upon today, which I think will be $150,000. That'll be the base floor that will be available.
Okay, so
with the possibility to increase.
Okay, so if I have this right, return to commission with a favorable recommendation to approve the management agreement extension with an option to renegotiate in 3 years for a possible funding increase and for a funding adjustment. To bring the total funding to $150,000 to be considered as part of the 26 budget process.
Yes, and I'd like to add to this, and I'll gauge how my colleagues feel. I want to go further than that and try and help you. And I spoke with Mr. Kasdan about this, and you don't have to come back with an answer now, but it's something we work on collaboratively. I don't know if we'll need to iron this out before this goes to full commission, but I want to find other ways to raise revenues for you, right? And we can be put on our thinking caps. You have a very capable board, which I'm sure will be full of ideas. But perhaps it's having 6 flagship events there and having some sort of sponsorship opportunity in the naming titles, right? So we have the FIFA World Cup viewing party brought to you by Saison at the North Beach Band Shell, and our city's able to help market that or things like that. Or could it be rented out on times where you're not operating it for fitness or commercial use or something like that? I'm not tied to any of these. I'm just brainstorming certain ideas.
Thank you for that. I really appreciate that support, Mr. Chair, and we will return to you with some ideas and work with your staff to set a time for us to sit down and whiteboard out some of this stuff.
Excellent.
All right, so that motion is that Commissioner Bott making the motion?
Yep.
And I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right. Item passes. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. CFO, let's go on to NB3, hotel workforce parking rates.
Okay. MB3. Discuss possible implementation of a hotel employee parking program at the 17th Street Garage, G5. MB3.
Will, welcome.
Hey, how you doing this morning, sir? Will McDonald, Director of Parking of Miami Beach. So I know that the last meeting, this item was running in conjunction with another item that got deferred today. So I just wanted to get some guidance from the commissioners on that.
That item was deferred. It was Commissioner Fernandez who wasn't able to attend. So this one would just be related to the hotel employees at G5.
All right. So the city administration, we do support the implementation of this program. We have had successful employee programs in a few different areas throughout the city. Our only caution on this one item is because of the current situation with the padel courts, and I hope I'm saying padel, padel, I think it's padel. We would want to get a better understanding of where those are going to go before we make the final decision on whether this would be G5, whether this would be G9, on where they would go. But I think we can come up with, for example, right here on our G7, we have the Lincoln Road Employee Program. So we have deployed these programs with varying degrees of success in other places within the city, and I think we can do the same thing here as well.
Yeah, and I actually think this could actually help raise parking revenues overall. If I go down to the street end on 17th Street, despite our best efforts, it is still just all handicap parking tags that sit there all day, and that is from the employees of the hotels that are right there. If we give them an option, a very cheap, affordable option to park, without, we should step up enforcement, but then provide them a means that is not stretching their budget. In fact, not only the 17th Street Garage, but I think a great opportunity would be the New World Symphony Garage, because I think the utilization rate there is even lower. So really what I'd look to target are some of the Art Deco hotels that are in that 17th, 18th, 19th, 16th Street corridor. If you go to any of the street ends there in between east of Collins Avenue, you'll see handicap tags just on almost every single vehicle. Let's move those employees into the garage at an affordable rate, and that'll open up the street parking for our residents, for our visitors. We'll actually be collecting revenue there. I'll let you figure out, the semantics about what rate we should be charging, but I think some sort of program on a monthly basis, for employees to park for $30 per month or something along those lines. That certainty of not then having to, put a fake handicap placard up, I think, that could be intriguing.
Well, and to address that, Commissioner, right now with Miami Beach's extremely generous self-voluntary handicap registration program, it's not only to residents. So if an employee truly does have a placard right now, if they go down to our customer service, bring their placard and varying amount of information, they can register and actually park at no charge within our garages. So what we'll try to do is, one, communicate the programs that are out there for these individuals, and then we can obviously, try to provide an item that is going to be able to serve them, to be able to park, serve the needs of the parking by, driving revenue, but also provide an item that they can utilize without, breaking the bank.
Yeah, and this, we're gonna have to be proactive, right? So I'll work with you. We can both go and speak to the GMs of every single one of those hotels and operators and restaurants and say, can you call a meeting with your staff? We'll show up to it. We'll explain the parking. In one hand, we're gonna communicate that we're gonna be stepping up enforcement for illegally displayed handicap tags on the street. However, we don't want to sit here and burden you with parking for 8 hours at a rate of $4 or $5 per hour. We want to help our workforce, and that way we're just accommodating you several blocks away.
Absolutely.
Excellent. Thank you.
If I can, so this is because I said looking at the recommendation, there's related to G5 and G9. Is this for both garages or just the G5?
So,
Or to have the flexibility?
we have to have the flexibility just
So we can have
depending,
both.
because what we don't want to do is all of a sudden, let's say, for example, the Padel courts go on the top of one and we've just allocated a few extra 100 parkers there.
So Chair, maybe we can have, as if this is to return to commission with a favorable recommendation to direct the administration to implement a hotel employee parking program at the G5 and G9 parking garages.
Thank you.
And is that the New World Symphony Lodge?
Actually, that would be the World Symphony. If we include that, we could incorporate, I believe it's G12,
Which one is G12?
the World Symphony.
Yeah.
So you would recommend G5, G9, G12?
I think there can be some.
No, G12 is. Yeah, I think it's G5. Yeah, G5 and G9.
World Symphony.
Yeah.
G9.
Yeah, G9's the Pennsylvania Avenue, which is the New World. Who would be making that motion?
I'll make it.
Okay. I'll second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Passes.
I have NB 25 on this sheet, but what is the building department fees?
MB 25?
Yeah.
Okay, we're going to call MB 25. Hold on, that can't be. Nope, that is not correct. Hold on, sorry. It's not MB 25. It's the building. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so do I. But on here, it's listed as 25 and 35 and 36.
Yeah.
Where's the building department fees?
Yeah.
12.
12, sorry about that. So MB 12, discuss discount for building department permit fees for renovations age 65 and older homeowners. MB 12.
Good morning, Carlos Diaz.
Well, wait a second, let me introduce my item. I see that the administration is recommending against this, but here's how I would advocate for this. And what this item is it is a discount for building permit fees for renovations if you're 65 and older. Here's the situation we have. I did a talk show, a radio show, and one of the seniors that called in said, we can't afford these permit fees. I want to fix my fence, and I went there and I got a violation. So if you don't discount a lot of our seniors that are on some sort of fixed income, they're just going to do the work illegally. I would rather them pull a permit so that this work is being completed the correct way. So I do not agree with the administration's recommendation not to help out our senior citizens at a time when they are suffering. Do you know where Vince is? Because I find this unacceptable.
Yeah. Do you have
And
the numbers
I
for those?
honestly, I think that I don't know how you feel about this. We could raise the threshold from 65 to possibly 70 years old if that would make you feel more comfortable. But to not give any discount for our senior citizens that are applying for permits for simple fixes to their homes is really not understanding the situation that people in our community are facing. And I was elected to represent them, and I don't think they would be very happy, nor would our senior community, with this administration's recommendation on this item. So I would like to hear from our building director, who is not present right now.
And Commissioner Rosalyn Gonzalez, I apologize for just recognizing you as a visitor, given Commissioner Suarez is not here yet. I believe you're actually acting as a voting member alternate.
So I would like to hear how you guys feel about this, and maybe we could have a list of simple items that we will discount, or maybe I'll just ask to waive fees completely for certain items that you need, like for certain item updates. simply because people they can't afford it. And this is what we're gonna get in turn. How do you feel about that?
Rick?
Through the chair. I had a conversation about a week or so ago with Vince, and I apologize that I did not communicate to you. I believe that there are restrictions under the building code that would not allow us to differentiate the fees that are charged based on age. I think we have to across the board. So your suggestion now, which is that perhaps there are certain items, or perhaps it's if the value of the work is less than X dollars, but there are some traps because the building department can't just waive fees. They could reduce them for certain scopes maybe, but you have to treat everyone the same. And that was something that Vince brought to my attention about a week or week and a half ago.
What percentage of the building department budget, and Jason, this might be a question for you, comes from small residential permits versus these really large projects? Do you know that?
I would have to defer to the building department.
Okay. Good morning, Carlos Diaz, Assistant Director, Building Department. So it would be a small percentage when you compare it to the larger projects.
Like what kind of percentage? I think it's de minimis.
I would have to say probably between 10 and 15%, but I'd have to look into it to be sure.
Now, I'm not saying slash the building department's budget, but I do think that there are simple fixes. I would like to know where you place, here, this would be my direction as we work on this. Can you give us a list of the top 10 violations that you give out?
We can.
To residents? And then let's look at those top 10 building violations that we have and look into a waiver of fees on those violations.
Yeah, and this is, in risk of just sounding like a broken record, I know we are making substantial changes. I appreciate your effort. I appreciate Vince's effort, the entire city's effort. But the amount of my time and staff's time that is spent on just inquiries on permits and building department stuff, and we really can't even do much other than just saying, hey, let us try and connect you. It's not as if we can, do much more than help navigate the system. So given this new news, I was going to be supportive of the age. Do you want to keep this here as we kind of give direction to the building department to come back with more information so we can find some sort of creative way to help reduce the burden on our residents? And I think at the end of the day, where a lot of these things are leading back to is over the years, and you just see it from all of our meetings, right? We just create more regulation, more hoops that we need to jump through. Maybe we're working on pulling some of those back because that's really what's driving some of our residents getting these violations. Maria, please.
Hello, Maria Hernandez, Assistant City Manager overseeing building. To your point, Commissioner Magazine, I think you would know that we've been working on the realignment of not only the building department, but all the departments that have their hands in a permit for about a year now. And we're right on the cusp over the next month or two to really move the needle on that because, number one, we're going to bring back the walkthrough process, but much more robustly than what we have right now. Right now, we really just do a pilot. We're going to bring it back like it was in the old days, but better because we're also fixing our technology and we're bringing in a system that will hopefully allow people that want to use the technology to do it in a much more streamlined way, but then residents or people that have a problem that really don't want to use the technology to come in and to get service Monday through Thursday from 8 to 12. They just come to the building department and we will help them and we will hopefully fix their problem and they can walk out with their permit. So that's our goal. We're very close to executing that 100%. We haven't sent out any information yet, but it's about a month or two away. So to your point, we're hoping that that helps a lot with what your concerns are. Now, to your point, Commissioner, again, we have to treat everybody, by the way, Vince is not here because he's triple booked in some other meetings.
Can you show me which language that is? Because I would really like to explore which law that is that says that there cannot be a senior discount. This might be something for our state legislators to change moving forward in the future, especially for seniors. But my direction today would be, give me a month and I will meet with the building department to see what we could do without, breaking the budget or anything like that, based on, our top 10 that we think people are not pulling permits for, the top 10 building permits that we're giving violations to. And then we can come back next month.
Yeah, if I can, I think it states in the memo that it's chapter 553, section 87A, that says that all fees have to be consistently applied. I've run into this in previous governments that I worked for, but if it sounds like the commissioner would like to, we could just show this item heard and to return at a later date. And this would allow the building department to sit down with the commissioner to have a discussion about some opportunities related to senior discounts, which this item specifically is about senior discounts, because there was some general discussion about possible other things related to seniors that the building department may not be able to do that isn't strictly.
Well, this was a senior discount. That's what it says. Discuss
Right.
a discount for building department permit fees for renovations age 65 or older homeowners.
Correct. This is your item. So
yeah,
they can meet with you offline to have a discussion about what opportunities there are related to.
So that was my motion to meet, and we'll bring it back next month and hear it very quickly. Just
yeah, if the chair's okay, we don't have to have a motion. The building department, I think, has gotten some feedback from you. They'll reach out and meet with you offline, and we'll just show this item heard and to return next month.
because it says here, providing discounts to residential homeowners over the age of 65 may not comply. It doesn't say it does not comply. It say it may not comply, and I would like to get to yes and find out why it may not comply instead of complying. So we're going to get together with Rick, and we're going to put our heads together and come up with a way to help our seniors and find out how we can get to yes on Florida Statute 553.80, because it doesn't say it doesn't comply.
We'll reach out to Jackie and set up a meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
I look forward to it.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Bye.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. And Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, do you want to continue on some items for you, NB 22?
Oh,
Okay, MB 22.
yes.
MB 22, discuss a proposed second amendment between the City of Miami Beach, a municipal corporation of the state of Florida City, and Boucher Brothers Miami Beach LLC concessionaire to authorize the sale of alcoholic beverages and the implementation of advertising and sponsorship opportunities within the designated concession areas. MB 22.
Much needed we spend a lot of these committees of putting money out the door. I always welcome opportunities to get money in the door. So thank you for this. Ozzy, why don't we turn it over to you?
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners and staff. Ozzy Dominguez, Division Director of Asset Management for the City of Miami Beach. The city engaged into a concession agreement with Boucher Brothers back in 2012. Since then, there has been an amendment to their agreement, Amendment Number 1, to the amended and restated concession agreement. There is now a proposal to introduce the sale of alcoholic beverage and advertising through the concessions agreement. They are allowed as long as the vote is in favor. Boucher Brothers has proven to be a very responsible, dedicated concessionaire. They provide incredible service. They work with all city departments. By allowing them the opportunity to introduce the sale of alcoholic beverage and advertising, number one on the alcoholic beverage side, we will hopefully be able to combat and eliminate the illegal sales on the beach, on the sand, by having a program that is regulated and that is run by a professional organization. And then also allowing the advertisement through either umbrellas or on their concession stands will also allow to bring incredible new programs and opportunities for additional revenue for the city.
Can I?
Yes, ma'am.
I'm okay. When I sponsored this, I'm okay with the alcohol sales portion, but I don't understand the advertising part. I don't mind a little bit of advertising on umbrellas, but I don't want all of our beach stands to have advertising on them. I think that will cheapen the entire beach experience. So I would be okay with umbrella advertising. I don't want any advertising on the beach stand. And then there's only one more thing, and I don't know why it's not written here, and that is, it says, as revenue grows, so too does the city's share under the agreement's percentage-based compensation structure. What is the structure for this, for the alcohol sales?
I believe on all beverage sales, which would include the alcohol sale, it's 30%.
30%? So 30% is good. We're okay with 30%. That's,
We need to
it's a
double
big
check.
area.
Yeah, we need to double check, but if you move this item.
I will move this item with the 30%, because that is serious revenue for the city of Miami Beach. And
Commissioner, allow me to double check before I make that promise.
that's a big,
Yeah.
you know.
I think
we
it's either
double check?
25 or 30, but I can check real quick and get back to you.
As in real quick, now?
Yes.
Please. Yeah.
Before we vote on this?
Yeah. But I mean, I'd like to have that answer and a few more before we even consider any type of motion here. So we'll discuss,
Yes.
Ozzy, and you grab that number.
2 minutes. Thank you very much.
What are you projecting in terms of sales? That's actually a good split. I mean,
Yeah, so where my two areas of focus, what type of revenue, and explain the advertising. So
Yeah.
Commissioner Bott, why don't you give some of your thoughts or questions, and Ozzy, this is cutting into those 2 minutes, so.
So I'm very concerned about two things. Well, very concerned about the advertising. I think one of the charming things about our beaches, especially when you're looking in South Beach and you've got the postcard of Art Deco and Ocean Drive, is that it is advertising free. And I would actually be more inclined to put a placard on the kiosk itself. You know, this booth brought to you by whatever, or this drink brought to you by whatever, than having the advertising on the umbrellas, because I think that really cheapens the look and feel of South Beach. Well, all of Miami Beach, but where it's mostly concentrated is South Beach. So I would not be supportive of this with advertising on umbrellas. The other thing is, this is a radical change from what we have done in the past and what we're doing currently. We are working very hard to turn our city away from, you know, party till you drop kind of stuff. And I would like to try this out in a section before we enter into a citywide agreement for multiple years. Because, you know, I think in principle this should be great, but I want to limit it, and so it doesn't become, it doesn't undo all the work that we're trying to do. So those are two very big concerns of mine.
If, in question about where we stand now, if I have a beach chair at Soho House, right, and Rick, maybe this is to you, I'm able to order a drink there.
Where's that? At Soho?
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with whether you can or cannot, but
Okay, not that specifically, but you're up beach from a hotel like that.
I believe that hotels, if they can join or show that their licensed premises includes the beach concession area, that's going to vary property to property. I'm not a liquor expert. I know a little bit just based on my past background, but I have seen liquor sales on the beach.
Got it. And yeah, I'm back and forth on the advertising because it's one of those, the devil's in the detail things. You can see it going either way. I know in some of these high end on the French Riviera and the Amalfi Coast, actually some of these very high end brands have rolled out in the past 2 years these beautiful umbrella concepts, and it's almost like, you know, Christian Dior umbrellas, and it looks stunningly beautiful. But I also don't want buzzball umbrellas or things like that. So I think whatever direction, maybe we're not there yet on shoring up exactly what the advertising is, but I know the one thing that will have to be front and center is the city maintains a certain discretionary authority about the types of advertising that we could do, and there has to be some sort of decision maker that would have ultimate authority to say, no, this isn't in line with our brand.
can I say something? The reason why, Commissioner Bott, I like the advertising on an umbrella versus the actual stand is because right now it's already being advertised. It says Boucher Brothers. Like, for example, if they were serving Whispering Angel, it could be like a print umbrella and it would just say a little like Whispering Angel. Do you understand? The other one is kind of like as you go to the beach, it's in your face. That's why I'm saying if we did do it, I would have a discretionary, kind of like when you see on the beach in Italy, it says like, you know, Aperol.
Yeah.
I remember you at the Aperol beach last year.
I remember you at the
yes,
Aperol Beach.
I was at the Aperol beach too. I was. So, and we both enjoyed our fun under the sun. So I do think that it completes the beach experience. But I do think that, you know,
Could there be some sort of like almost akin to the design review board? Not
You'd
not
have
the
to
design
present the
review
design.
board,
You'd
but
have
you
to-
know the design would have to be presented to staff or to the commission.
like art in public
Yes,
places.
in
I don't
per-
know. We'll
yeah,
send it to
in-
some
in-
committee for to be approved. There needs to be an approval process for any. I would hesitate to do anything beyond umbrellas, but Commissioner Bott doesn't want any. You don't want any advertising at all.
I'd prefer no advertising, and that's coming from somebody who's in advertising and branding, and I understand the revenue generation that it creates, but that revenue is not shared by the city, right? Any advertising?
Yes.
It would
Yes.
be shared? thought it
Yes,
was just
I actually had
alcohol
inverted my numbers, my apologies. The advertising share is 50% of their gross revenue for advertising, and on the alcohol side, it's 15%.
I really don't want it on the kiosk, so I think it will cheapen the experience. I'm not ready for the advertising portion, but I will move the alcohol forward, but I would suggest
Can we
that
do it in a pilot program before we do it citywide?
one beach in a pilot program, I'd be okay with that. But I would like that also to be at a 30% rev, at least minimum 25, because alcohol has tremendous margins. You know, already have the stake on there, so.
Yeah, tell us where this is being proposed and contemplated. What are the details?
Right, so what we were thinking
And please
initially
introduce
is
yourself.
Loomis Park, Ralph Andrade here on behalf of the
Thank
Boucher
you.
Brothers. You're welcome, Commissioner. And what I would request is that, look, this is all subject to further discussion, right? The alcohol piece, the revenue share, the advertising component. There's gonna be a lot of time between now and when this item goes to commission to hash out those details. And when it gets to commission, if the commission wants to bifurcate the two, it can, you have that option. If you want to go with both, you have that option. But I think it would be wise and prudent to, you know, for the commission to have both options available to you for your consideration.
I wish that we would have sat down and really hashed this out better, because I'm not,
We're not ready yet.
I think it's ready to move. We're going to have plenty of time between now and September when this will probably come back to the commission.
do you want to talk offline right now and bring this back in an hour today? 'Cause I think we need to have some discussions about this.
Exactly what would you like to zero in on so we can?
I would like to know
Step
what our
outside.
revenue share is and what you're planning in terms of advertising.
Okay, and when, sorry, Commissioner
All
Bartlett,
of us do.
yeah, for, when we're talking about timing, what type of revenue are we talking about here? Are we talking, Ozzy, do we project the city to receive $50,000, or are we talking the city could receive $1.5 million? And where, or whatever it may be. And where I'm going with that is, if it's important to keep this timing on track, because Mr. CFO, help guide me here. I'm thinking of timeline with our budget to get this projected revenue in for 2026. It would seemingly have to be heard by commission by September.
Not having, I'm off the top of my head here, I'm thinking, not having any prior information, it might be difficult to extrapolate that. So I would normally be, you know, we're conservative when it comes to budgeting, so I prefer to have actual data and then really put this in the 27 budget, because we just have no idea what those revenues would be. So it sounded like the sponsor wanted to, I guess, put this on hold and have it recalled later in the meeting, which I believe, unless Rick tells me is not allowed, I think would be allowed, and we can move on to another item. And this could be reconvened later in the meeting. Rick?
Yes.
Yeah. So if that's what it appears the sponsor would like to do, we can just put this one on ice, as it were, and call another item or two. And
Is that a pun?
very bad.
I think on the rocks.
Sure, Bob and I,
Yeah,
experts there.
I prefer Rick's. You know, we'll put it on the rocks for a little bit, and when the sponsor wants it to be recalled, she can request you to do so. Excellent. We can show what
But
that, we'll
can
show
I
what
just
that.
ask a quick question? Like, if it's not going to the commission until September, why don't we just come back in July? Because we have a FERC meeting in July, and we can hash everything out and have it fully baked and come back, and it'll still be at the September commission meeting. So nobody loses any time.
Here's what I would suggest. Bifurcate the two, because I don't understand what the advertising is. I'm okay, especially because it's summer, moving forward with alcohol on the beach, especially to legalize the illegal sales. And just because it makes the beach experience more complete. And it allows our beaches to compete with everyone else's, so I would move it forward. I've spoken to the Boucher Brothers, and they're offering 25% revenue share. I'm okay with 25%. I think that's a very decent offer. So I would move it at the 25% and bifurcate bifurcate the advertising, and we can bring back the advertising if you like in a month and talk about that later. But I would move it forward in summer, especially it's summer right now. Why not? Miami Beach can make a significant amount of revenue off of this, just from, selling Whispering Angel or whatever it is on the beach. It's not a big deal.
So a couple of logistics questions. One, where is it contemplated? Two, what types of alcohol are we talking? And then three, part of the overriding factor for me on this is to curtail the black market activity. And I've said this for a year and a half. I like to go to the beach often, and if I sit on a beach that is not upland from a hotel, you feel like you are in one of the worst cruise destinations, the cheapest place in the world with all the hawkers. And that is somewhat of a recent phenomenon just within the past 2 years. And it's one of those things, it'd be great to send out code compliance and our police. We're stretched, right? There's a finite amount of resources. How can we be sure that going forward with this will help curtail the black market activity? Because I'd rather have something that's regulated than having things that are sold, margaritas sold out of people's backpacks, and just the unpleasant experience of just sitting there and being hawked over and over again. And it started with margaritas, and now it's from everything from empanadas to weed.
In our,
Today we just increased, Commissioner bought the funding for the Rhythm Foundation, something that all of us want to do, but something that also we realize that when we add these recurring expenses and we don't have a competing, increase in revenue, we're just giving it out. We could actually have this dedicated to arts and culture funding if you wanted, and that might cover everything and more. Like, it could cover all of our recurring arts and culture funding, and any surplus can go into the general fund. I mean, it's one way to work this, if that would bring you on board, because then we know at least we have a revenue source that we're pegging to some of these items.
I appreciate that offer. I'll think about it for a second, but I do want to correct the misnomer that the arts and culture funding that we provide in the city is what is putting our budget over the top. I mean, 70% of our budget is going to fire and police and full-time employees, and that is a normal thing in a city. So the $100,000 we gave to the Rhythm Foundation is an economic engine, is a driver for continued growth. And the same thing with Miami New Drama. It's pennies on the dollar compared to what we spend. What I forgot to tell you about the Rhythm Foundation, they have the projectors that we want to use for the building light, so we can borrow them for that. Michael Rossi has 4. I think we needed 10. I think we've got the projectors at no additional cost.
Incredible.
So, therefore, we've just saved $100,000. So, I know.
Cool, girl.
Not bad for for a words girl, not a numbers girl. But so my point is that. Sure.
Good point. I agree with you. You were right on that. You're right. I just hesitate when I see stuff. I'm like, I want to do it.
That isn't what's driving the budget, right? That is not what's driving the budget. It's there are lots of other things. I'm not going to call them out, but
go ahead.
I have reservations. We haven't talked about where we're going to do this as a pilot program, because I don't want shots sold. I think we need to be very mindful about what we're doing and maybe have a limited menu of mixed drinks. I don't think this is, if somebody's coming down, their frat bros coming down. Sorry, Joe. Okay, bachelorette party. We don't need people doing shots on the beach at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and then being carted off by emergency services at 6. So I want this to be, if we want to enhance the experience, let's think about how it is being used in European cities, which are more sophisticated about this sort of thing, and what is offered, how it's monitored, what it looks like. Are we going to, is there going to be a 3-drink limit? Like, I'm not suggesting that, but like, how are we going to do this so that it doesn't end up with people getting sunburn and alcohol poisoning on the same day?
Yeah, and I think, to add to that, I think we would need some sort of require some sort of staff training to be cognizant of people that are overserved, just like a bar would have, or things like that. If we're going to be serving alcohol, right, that responsibility has to be borne by the people that are essentially serving it.
Yeah, because to that point, you have your 5th drink in an hour and a half, and you stagger off to the beach to cool down, to the water to cool down, and all of a sudden you forget how to swim, right? So I know it happens in other places. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying we're doing things differently now. We need to be really mindful of making sure we don't do something that's stupid, that doesn't, not that this is stupid, but do it in a stupid manner so that we create more problems than we're trying to solve.
Right. So
I'm sorry.
if I may, because I know that there were a lot of questions and a lot of great comments, and I want to be able to address them now. In our discussions prior to this meeting, or in preparation for this meeting, my discussions with the Boucher Brothers organization, we have talked about curtailing the black market. They are going to be increasing policing through staff and through additional police services on the beach to prevent that black market from continuing to enter our beach. In addition to what you were just mentioning.
Can I ask a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Additional police servicing,
Off-duty police.
so the Boucher brothers will be hiring off-duty police
Correct.
to help curtail.
Correct.
Okay.
So in addition to their staffing policing, they're going to be hiring off-duty police. We will be able to
That'll be the
delineate
Boucher
all of these
Bros.
details.
That will be the Boucher bros.
We will detail all of this in the commission memo with more information on it. In addition to that, as far as the menu that you were just mentioning, Commissioner, we will work together with Boucher to have a set menu of what the offerings are so the commission can actually see it and further comment on it, or approve or edit it as needed. Boucher has committed right now to $10,000 a year for the next 9 years as a public benefit to the band shell as part of this amendment to their agreement. And where, Mr. Chair, you had asked where we would like to launch this program. The preference is Loomis Beach. So they have Loomis Beach, 21st and 46th, if you want to just restrict it to Loomis Beach for the first
21st,
phase.
go ahead.
We can limit it to
What
just
are
Loomis
those
Beach.
streets?
It's Loomis, 21st and 46th Street.
Yeah.
It would just be Loomis.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm sure we all have our favorite revenue sources that we'd love to dedicate this to, but I know we have a big initiative to expand the health and wellness offerings down in Loomis Park and also in North Beach. Given that this is a beach item, and we do have funding for the band shell, I think that would be a great dedicated revenue source. In line with Blue Zones.
And 25%.
I'm okay with it. What I would tell you, Commissioner, about are the people that are getting super wasted on the beach are not paying $15 for a glass of rosé. They're going to the corner store and bringing in a bottle.
It's worse
and they're
than
doing
that.
it right now.
It's worse
you
than
know,
that.
so at least we're getting a cut of revenue, and people, yeah, I think it. I don't think it's going to be a problem. Like if it was a problem, we can revisit whatever we write into the contract. Is if we find out that one beach is out of control or something, we can revisit this. We have to have some
And
sort
am
of
I right in
protection
that you're
in
actually
the concession agreement.
You're already serving alcohol on the beach from some of the hotels, or
Well,
maybe a lot of the hotels.
So a lot of the hotels do have alcohol service. So yeah, there's alcohol on the beach. And Commissioner, what I was saying is it's worse than them going, up the block to the store to get a drink. Their folks are illegally selling these things out of school bags along the beach, entirely unregulated.
So essentially, we're taking what's already happening and just expanding to these two beaches.
Correct. And you're legalizing what's currently a black market.
And I actually think it's a higher revenue share because I don't think we get that 25% revenue share from the hotels.
or from the illegal
don't.
sales vendors. Yeah.
So this is a great deal. This could be a game changer and serious revenue source for us, because I don't know how many chairs there are and what the projected sales are, but at 25%, I think we could have some serious revenue. And you just got $10,000.
I didn't get anything.
Oh,
So Chair-
for
Chair-
the Rhythm Foundation, which I had nothing to do with. I would move it for Loomis Park at the 25% revenue share,
For a
bifurcating
pilot
the
program.
advertisement for a pilot program.
So
Pilot?
if I may, taken some notes here, and obviously there's some more detail. Staff has definitely taken some notes, and when they come back to commission, obviously with the final agreement, which will iron out all of those final details. But
I would say that the menu could be like aspirational. I'm not going to put you with a fixed menu of what sells and what doesn't, because obviously these things are fluid. Some drinks, not all drinks sell equally. So, I mean, I would never, whatever you want in terms of, like showing us an example of what you plan to sell, that's fine, but that could be changed. It's not set in stone.
Steve Boucher with the Boucher Brothers. Basically, what my family's trying to do is we're trying to create the same experience that you might have gotten behind the Delano or the Soho house at the public beaches. Right now, you can't get that experience. We're trying to compete with the Caribbean. We're trying to compete wherever else they're trying.
You're actually democratizing it, because the people that are going to these beaches are staying in the smaller off-water hotels. So it is kind of a democratization of the entire process, because they can't afford to stay at some of those waterfront hotels, and they don't get the same service. But this way they will, with a more inexpensive chair. And by the way, I've seen this too across Europe. You have municipal beaches that always have a concession, and they have cheaper prices than some fancier hotels. So, I mean, look, we're going to try it and see how it goes.
And right now, on the weekends, there could be 50 people selling alcohol illegally. And we're going to obviously stop that from happening once we start the program.
Do you have any type of back of the envelope revenue projections for Loomis?
We haven't really done that structure yet, but once we start negotiating with the city, we were going to get into all that and get it back. We can get back to you as soon as possible with that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
We can get together with that.
So I think that if I have my notes right, there's a lot more notes that Ozzy's taken in. Obviously, it'll incorporate into that final agreement that'll go to commission and detail that out. But I think this would return to commission with a favorable recommendation to approve the second amendment to the Boucher Brothers Miami Beach LLC concession agreement for the sale of alcohol at the Loomis Park location with a 25% city revenue share and a $10,000 per year for 9-year contribution to support the band shell. I believe that's.
And we just gave them a lot of money. That's
exactly what I'm going to ask.
They
They
seem
would
very
just help
happy
to-
with it.
If I can,
Perhaps to be determined into the city, something operating in the Loomis Park area.
If I can note the extra additional $100,000 that was approved for the band shell, we don't have funding for, and we have to identify that through cuts in there. So this would actually help make that support, if that's okay.
Okay.
So I believe Commissioner Rizzo-Gonzalez, that would have been your motion?
Yes,
Okay.
you heard
Need a second?
everything.
But
Yes.
what about the duration of the pilot program?
The number of years of that wasn't discussed. This was
The amendment would have the life of the existing agreement. Did
That
you
is
want
not
to
a pilot
have
program.
a trial period for the sale of alcohol? We can do that. We'll
Let's
discuss
revisit.
that.
We'll do 1 year. We'll revisit in a year. We'll look at the revenue. We'll have a
Absolutely.
discussion surrounding it. And then if it's all good, then we continue.
Okay.
That's fine.
And we'd like to bring this back to the July commission meeting. That's fine.
Okay. So I have the motion. I need a second.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Commissioner, we have a public comment.
Yes, please.
Daniel Seraldo, please unmute yourself.
Yes, thank you. Daniel Seraldo, 730 10th Street. I just got back from the Italian Riviera. There's a little bay of Paraggi, which is a beach of Portofino. And I was impressed to see the revamped beach clubs there, which are now partnered with 2 brands, Christian Dior at Boni Fiori and Vespa at BB. It's done very tastefully and does not feel at all like advertising, but more like an actual experience. I'm happy to meet with the team to share these ideas. I think there's a way to do this tastefully, like on the Riviera and not like Cancun. But design guidelines should be considered, and even maybe little cabanas would be nice so that folks could change or wash off. This way we could be a little more like the Riviera vision of Tony Goldman, Barbara Kappeman, and others. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Daniel. Actually, while I haven't seen it in person, that's the exact place that I saved down that caught my eye. Very tastefully designed umbrellas. And
Field
trip. Mr. Chair.
And it could be a designer beach like Dior Beach. I wouldn't.
What Daniel just said was exactly what our thoughts are about, you know, with the advertising and the experience with the alcohol.
And Mr. Chair, before you move this item, are you keeping the advertising piece here so we can discuss that at the July meeting?
I think that makes sense, right?
I'm fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
We can add, so we'll add that this item will be retained to return related to discuss the advertising. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Why don't we hear NB 4 and 14 green roofs? This is something I absolutely love. Commissioner Bott, why don't I let you tee this up? I had a similar item maybe about a year ago that really perplexed me, but just seemed to be so incredibly cost prohibitive. I'd love to find ways to make this happen. It is needed. I don't know how we do so with the numbers that were presented before. Mr. CFO.
MB4, resolution of the mayor and city commission of the city of Miami Beach, Florida, directing the administration to explore feasible strategies for creating and expanding green roofs, as well as incorporating greenery and landscaping on city buildings, and to present its findings to the Land Use and Sustainability Committee and the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee within 90 days of the adoption of resolution. That is MB4. It'll be heard the same as MB14. Discuss the feasibility of implementing a green roof at City Hall, MB14.
So, you know, you see images from countries around the world and cities that are less well off than we are, that have gorgeous green living walls and green roofs. And I keep thinking if they can do it, we can do it. And I'm not suggesting we have a manicured lawn on the top of a roof. You know, there's a book actually that Eric has, our city manager has, and I flagged a whole bunch of pictures in there that show, you know, that there are green roofs done in sort of potted plants and portions of the roof that are done. So there are lots of different ways to do it than a uniform, you know, the entire roof is covered. I think if there's a way to, you know, we talk about how do we incentivize people to do the right thing when they come to us with building projects. One of these incentives could be green roofs or living walls. That could be something that we do. I know this building that we're sitting in right now was designed to have a 5th floor, so it can definitely withstand the weight. We could do, and that comes from our historian, our architectural historian, Debbie Tackett. So that, you know, we could try something here on this building. And again, it doesn't have to be a full coverage green roof. Every little bit helps. So I will let you take it from there, but that's where I'm coming from.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
pressure.
Commissioner, no, thank you very much. Ron Mumon, Director of Facilities and Fleet. I think we're all aware that a large portion of our facilities are decades old, and they were not designed, the roof decks were not designed to sustain additional soil, water, drainage opportunities. However, we did look at a newer facility, which is the facilities building at 1833 Bay Road, built in 2015. We've established that roof deck can, in fact, take on a green roof. What we looked at was creating a pilot program, potentially utilizing that to see how we could further expand across all of our city facilities. Now, not all of our city facilities could do that, but that would be something that we could start with and see how that looks and see how that I guess, expands across the city. We also, as we looked at City Hall, we looked at things like the height of the parapet wall. So the parapet wall is above the roof deck, which would provide additional opportunity for wind and rain support, as obviously we know where we live at and what happens here during rainy season and hurricane season. So what we'd like to do is again, start with the pilot program at 1833. Our initial estimates at $750,000. We could scale that back. That was looking at the total roof, which was 600 square feet or 6,000 square feet. If the committee would allow us to do that, we could look at that. Now, going back to City Hall and expanding on that, again, the parapet wall is so low that there is no protection from wind and rain and additional elements. We'd also have to look at the maintenance, future maintenance of those roofs as we continue on through this endeavor.
So what about doing things differently, like, you know, putting in sea oats up there, or different kinds of cacti that might need less care and maintenance and have fewer water requirements? The other place that we should be looking at is the South Shore Community Center, because that is a cement bunker, and it was designed to have indoor outdoor spaces, and the roof was part of that. So I think we have 3 places where we can test things out, and maybe, you know, each of the places gets a different type of green roof. You know, maybe one gets sort of more native plants, and one gets something a little bit like a box garden. And it doesn't have to be, you know, part of the appeal of a roof is that you can have seating areas up there, just wooden benches up there. And that takes up some of the space, but it increases the green space within the city that can be used. I think we really need to think outside the box on this, and I would very much encourage you to come back with a reduced estimate of what this is going to look like. I mean, if we can spend, you know, $600,000 across the 3 buildings, that would be amazing. And, you know, we could learn from that. I don't want to spend $1 million on one thing and it doesn't work, and then we're like, oh, well, it didn't work, therefore we're never doing it. Let's be scientific about this and figure out what works, how, where. You know, get a hold of that book that Eric has in his office and see the pages that were flagged. We were talking about it for other buildings that were being built. And then, you know, separately, maybe I can refer, Rick, can I do a separate referral to land use, I guess, as a building incentive, to incentivize behavior that we want to encourage with new development, as green roof or living walls?
We would need to place an item on the commission agenda to do a referral to land use. You can't do it directly from here.
Okay. So we'll do that.
Well, I will, not to open Pandora's box here, but when we talk about new development that the city is doing, what a great way. But then I think about like 72nd Street Garage. It's going to be like parking on top.
And
The roof
courts.
is activated on that one. That roof, sorry, Chair.
No, please.
That roof is activated.
Okay. And what is, and not to get off the path here, but what is the plan for this kind of campus? The city facilities here, this building, what is that building next door above the permit doctor? That is awful. This is our city hall, and we're a block away from Lincoln Road, and we're about to have the Grand Hyatt Convention Center Hotel. What is that thing? Is that a city-owned building? Do we have the
1701.
Rhetorical question?
Right.
It is.
It is.
But what is that? That's awful. Just an
I think
awful building?
I think the city purchased an older office building that was already built, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a private building that the city acquired due to office space needs.
I mean, I don't know. Maybe let's put our thinking caps on to have something a bit better in our city hall campus right there, whether it's some sort of P3 or how about for city hall? Is this building, are we like comfortable with the remaining life of it? What's the remaining life of city hall?
Frank Garcia, Facilities Management Division. We pump capital dollars into this and all of the buildings in our municipal portfolio, year round. So to assign a useful life expectancy to a building is really very robust. It's hard to say, Commissioner. But we're constantly evaluating and renewing and maintaining our mechanical systems, electrical systems, plumbing systems, et cetera.
How old is this building here and the office building next door? I know I'm catching you off guard, but
I'm not sure. I believe this was 77, and I don't recall the 1701 building, but I'm not partial to the mustard yellow on the facade either.
If I could just add to it, is that, as someone who lives in a condominium building, it goes to if you are continuing to maintain and you are spending the dollars you need to maintain you know, whether you're doing the weatherproofing and the painting, you're doing stucco work, you're doing the exterior, doing the roofs, you're doing the HVAC, a building can continue for quite a long time. And you look at like the Empire State Building and things like that. Buildings can be maintained, I'm gonna say in perpetuity, but to the point where as long as you are continuing to do all the things that we are supposed to do with your CRR, there isn't a thing to say, we only got 10 years left and we gotta, you know, junk this and do something different.
Just as a point of reference, so for any new building, you'll spend about 10 times the amount you spent on that new facility over the life of the building itself. So just to give you a perspective of dollars.
As anyone who's on a condo, lives in a condo and gets those assessments knows that you're constantly, you know, having to do all of that maintenance work. But so on this item, is this, did you get enough direction? Is the idea to come back with more?
We'll find 3
Yeah.
facilities, I think that was the ask.
And you know,
Potentially spread it across.
And I know talking to Vince, I'm sure they talked to building about some difficulties related to existing building retrofitting some of these, but obviously some of this would be just, I think part of that discussion was really is if the city is building any new facilities, that, you know, that would be something that maybe could be considered as part of a new building a city is.
No, it should be a requirement. It should be a requirement. If the city is building a new building, it should be a requirement, not a consideration. And I'm going to refer something to the June meeting for new development within the city anyhow. It's astonishing that we haven't been doing this before. And I do think we do have the 3 buildings that we are already very strong. Take a look at that book. There are lots of different ways to do this that are creative and inventive and aren't going to be bazillions of dollars. And we can do a portion of it to figure out what works and what survives, the way we do with the trees. I know Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez's favorite topic, the trees in the North Beach Park area. But let's figure out what thrives in this setting, because we haven't done it, we don't know, and then we can expand upon it.
I do question my worldview when I see Columbia so easily able to do this, and we can't here in Miami Beach.
Yep.
So
we have a public comment.
We had an initiative, I just want to add this, a few years ago where we were, like, certain cities were trying to get to a point where they were, like, power neutral, like they were greening their buildings by 2050. And we went through our entire inventory and we were told, you know, impossible. But there are cities, and if you work in facilities management, you should know this, that there are movements for cities to try to, you know, get to some point where some of their buildings are completely you know, resilient. I mean, we're not even like what is it, lead compatible, LEED, what, LEED?
LEED certified.
LEED, we're not even LEED certified, you know? So I pick one roof and you got to push it through. That's what I would tell you.
Well, I think we're
Pick one roof and meet every month until you drive everyone crazy and we get it done.
I think we're going to do that with 3. We're going to do the 3 strongest, most likely candidates and go from there.
So I think,
And
so we'll
include
share
the motion, do something about the mustard building, it's awful. So
Can't we just repaint it or something?
it's
So we'll
more
show
than
this
that.
item to return to FERC for additional discussion, and maybe you can meet with the sponsor to iron some of that detail out. Okay, thank you. That'll be for MB4 and 14, thank you.
Commissioners, public comment.
Yes, please.
Larry Schaefer, please unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, Larry Schaefer, 233 81st Street. I believe I have a property that's already built that should be considered for this. It might even be a perfect choice. And it's the Unidad North Beach Oceanfront Center. It was originally built in 2012 by Plaza Construction. Currently has some GeoBond money and some improvements there as well. It's very prominent. Its location is seen by many. And looking at this site here for Plaza, it says it's supported by 262 piles sitting 32 below grade. The structure is cast in place concrete in addition to block and steel, and is big enough to be prominent, small enough to be a smaller project. The roof might be about 4,000 square feet. So this is very front and center, and seems like it could support the structure, the weight, and is not too big. Like South Shore Community Center is a really big roof. This is manageable. So I'd like to see if the staff could possibly consider this one option. Thank you.
I love that idea, Larry. Unidad. How many hours of the day or week is Unidad activated? I mean, when we talk about ways for the city to raise revenue, right? I get the sense that maybe just a couple of hours a day, if that. I mean, it's a beachfront plaza. People could have weddings, bar mitzvahs there.
I agree, but I think the way that it works is that that revenue goes to Unidad, because even though it's our building, it's their lease on the building. But I do think that they have a capacity there for a tremendous revenue stream if they, get an event coordinator and start to plan. And I've spoken to them about it a few times.
Yeah, I think we're good, right? Thank you. Let's hear NB 16.
Okay. MB 16, discuss the current agreement with First Class Parking Corporation for valet parking concession and the potential of creating a subsidized and unified valet parking system offering reduced rates and greater convenience to customers, MB 16.
Okay, so before we go there, thank you so much for doing our sunshine meeting on this reduced valet parking. Anywhere you go in Coral Gables, you pull up, it's $5. You go to the design district, it's $5. And then you come here and it's $25. And that's really the reality of where we are in this. North Beach needs some help. Normandy needs help in the circle where there's not enough parking, and also the corridor, the commercial corridor where Blossom is, the Rhythm Foundation, and Sushi Beachy, they have no parking right now. And I would like to explore, how do we get to the $5 valet price? What will it cost? And what will it cost us? And how do we get there? Because I will say that the CRA in North Beach, I know we're always talking about it. If you really want economic development in North Beach, you need to have some cheap valet parking. Just like we waived their sidewalk cafe fees, we need to help them along. And by the way, in the design district, it is subsidized by the design district in an MOU with the city of Miami. In Coral Gables, it's the same thing. So this has to be a possibility. So give us good news.
Will McDonald, Director of Parking, Miami Beach. So there's a few points that I want to bring up, and I'll use the design district. So while the design district valet is subsidized, it's subsidized by a private developer. So there are no public funds used to subsidize that valet. And it does get a little bit tricky because one of the things that we've talked about within this memo is that we absolutely agree that there is a road to having valet throughout our city be a little bit more economically viable to people that are visiting. But we feel that is better driven, just like the design district, by the bids. Now, I know that North Beach is a bit of a different beast because I don't believe there is a current bid in place in that area. However, during the Sunshine meeting, I think there are a lot of good things that came out from that, because there are some ideas where we can start performing under our current agreement. We can start with a pre-sale of valet, for example, on nights that the band shell is activated. We can go ahead and say, hey, we're going to do a pre-sale of valet with your ticket, because the band shell has already made it very clear that they can pre-sell valet with their event tickets.
Well, sorry to interrupt. Where would we store the cars? So I think that's the biggest issue, right?
Yeah, we've looked at a couple places. So there is a P106, the library garage. There's a few, the library lot. There are a few other parking lots that are just north that are underutilized. And I think one of the things that came out of the Sunshine meeting was that there's no silver bullet right now to North Beach, because there were, I went on a night that the band shell was activated to get a better understanding of the parking habits, the transportation patterns, where the people were going, where they were parking, where they weren't parking. And one of the things that I noticed is that our very large parking lot right there was packed. People were circling around for no spots to be had. P106, which is right across the street from Sushi Beachy, had probably 20 empty spaces. And then just 2 blocks north, there was ample parking in the lots. But there happens to be some issues with lighting, and it's not something that we can fix because the lighting has to be the way it is because of, I'm assuming it's because of the turtles. So there's, I think there's some things we can do that are not just parking related, not just necessarily subsidizing the problem, but bringing in our transportation friends, bringing in freebie with the golf shuttles to now start making these lots that are 2 blocks north a little bit more attractive. Just because we have the capacity in those areas, we just need a way to get people, one, to those locations and get them to the businesses.
I'm not going to accept this answer, and I will explain why. Coral Gables has it everywhere, which means that a municipality can, in fact, subsidize it. My ask on this one, and I thank you very much for exploring this, my motion would be to give us the price of what it would cost to have $5 valet parking in 2 spots in North Beach every evening so that people get used to the fact that they can pull up and leave their car cheaply, and what that would cost the city. And then looking at that, we can either say, let's do it for 3 nights, let's do it for 5 nights, but I don't even see a number in this memo. There's no number. Can you please find out? And if, I would like to find out, and maybe it's not with first class. Maybe there's somebody out there who's willing to do it cheaper, and we need to figure out what that is. So my motion would be to get that information, reach out to, if you find out how is Coral Gables doing it, give us the numbers, and have a researched memo with numbers on it so we can get this done, because this is pivotal. It really is. You can't find parking sometimes on the Circle. David Sexton is really working hard to program that fountain, and now with the new parking program, people are, they're not parked. There is more street parking available, but people are not necessarily allowed to park in it. So how are we going to fill the gap? And I'd like to see.
Commissioner Bott.
Yeah, so in addition to the nights where there's something going on in the band shell, what happens when the Normandy Fountain area gets programmed, and there's smaller events and bigger events, right? So I'm not so worried about the smaller events, but there are bigger events where hundreds of people come, and what I'm hearing is that people will circle once or twice, and if they can't find parking, they'll leave, as opposed to driving a few blocks east or north or whatever, which, as somebody who grew up in cities, if you find a parking spot within 5 blocks of your destination, that's a home run. So don't quite understand that, but that's where we are. The question that Chair Magazine asked about where are we putting these cars helps, you answered for the band shell, but it doesn't necessarily help for that more western part of North Beach, where you have more restaurants happening and more activations happening. We have a parking lot, a city parking lot that is across the small street from the Chase Bank that is underutilized because it's been vacant for years. Can we, and I know we've talked to the guy for some period, but at some point, can we just not buy that lot and combine and build something there that is, I hate using money to build a parking structure, but
We're building a massive
I know, but
structure.
We're building a massive structure that's only adding about 100 spots or 120 spots.
That is kind of crazy, isn't it? Well, that's why I would like us to get good at this. Let's just see, how can Coral Gables get there and we can't? That we have to understand how we get to a place where we have inexpensive. Well, that's why we need to.
But I venture that they also have more places to park things, which we don't have in North Beach. We just don't have the physical spots.
We can be creative in the Normandy area. We have to figure it out. The businesses have come to us and said, we're desperate, especially because we're closing that parking lot where the band shell operates, and then there's going to be no parking.
No, that's
for
not
those
true.
businesses.
That's not true. There is going to be the Deauville parking lot with a shuttle operating.
When
it's not a great solution, but it's not no parking.
Well, if and when that passes, but that hasn't happened, and we don't know for sure if that, I'd like to tell you that it's happening, but that's not a certain. My point is, let's try to get this right. Let's keep it and get more
parking is better.
information.
More parking is better,
Okay.
no question.
Yes. Okay. So my motion would just be to get a memo with actual numbers and information for the next meeting. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
I think where this hinges is if we don't have underutilized parking in that area, how are we going to have room for valet? And that's not unique to that area. It's just simplistically how this would work anywhere, right? We wouldn't be able to have valet parking on Lincoln Road if we had no capacity on Lincoln Road, but we have the 17th Street Garage, New World Symphony Garage. Is this going to be contingent on acquiring something like the Deauville Garage or having additional parking capacity?
So I would say it depends. And so you brought up a good point, Commissioner, that valet, while it's not a silver bullet, and so we still need to park the cars, and while it can be, we could store the cars in underutilized areas that are a bit farther away, there needs to be the understanding that those valets that are employed also need to run back, and if it's really far, then they need to have a golf cart that's operating to bring them back. So that's why whenever we look at the challenges within the Normandy Fountain area as well as within the Bandshell area, we're going to be taking a multifaceted approach, because one thing isn't just going to solve what's going on there right now. And while I absolutely agree, there are opportunities to increase capacity, we also know how long municipal projects take. And also, I just bring up that in Miami Beach or in South Florida in general, the average cost of a space for a new parking structure is about $50,000 a space, which means that to pay a bond would be about, I want to say, $2,800 per year per space for a 20-year bond. So, and with our parking rates, obviously, not there, we have to take a really hard look at where we can be extremely creative with transportation solutions mixed in with parking solutions. Not to bring in our director.
I think we should take a field trip to Coral Gables and go sit down with their parking director and have a discussion. And I think we have to be creative, because maybe you just need a golf cart. We've got all the parking in the world on those west lots that happen to be empty at night. So if we could easily have a golf cart just go back and forth, and it's less than a mile away. So it would just
Perhaps
be a
we can
zip up
ask
the
our
street and
old
zip back.
friend, Joe Gomez, who's an assistant city manager now.
Oh,
Coral
okay,
Gables.
so you know what, we should,
back.
I'm gonna reach out, we're gonna reach out to you and schedule a meeting, possibly with or at least a Zoom call with the parking director there, so that we can figure out how to get it done. And hopefully between now and our next finance meeting, we'll have done that, we'll have specific numbers, we'll have a plan, and I want everybody to be open-minded, because it isn't something, I don't just want this on nights when the bandshell is operating. I want people to know that they can just pull up and park and go to our local businesses. I want people to pull up, park, go to Sushi Beachy. He's having a terrible time, okay? And he's a really successful business. We took away that parking with no plan to replace it with anything. And now we're gonna have to subsidize that, unfortunately. So, and hopefully we can. We can get there.
So if I can just add, just two elements. I think we can show the item to return to FERC with additional information as requested. And I know our parking director should be able to contact their parking director, because it's our prior parking director, so Monica,
Okay.
who was our
it's
parking
Monica
director.
in Coral Gables?
Correct.
Oh, okay, wonderful. That's so funny. Okay, so yeah,
staff
with
can
it,
interface with her and discuss if there is some other option.
yeah, because this referral, I wanted you to come back with a specific plan and numbers, and all I got was a negative. And I know that you can do this. We can do this. And if First Class can't, then there's a company in Coral Gables that can, and we'll figure that out.
Commissioners, public comment?
Yeah, please.
Larry Schaefer, please unmute yourself.
Hello, this is Larry Schaefer, 233 81st Street. I have one quick creative idea. We have a massive vacant lot at the Deauville site that has grass on it. Is it possible to park cars on that huge site and negotiate that as part of an agreement with the Deauville property owners? I also think the west lots have room for valet parking quite often, so I think you want to talk to the parking department about the utilization of those lots. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. I always appreciate the insight. Do we want to keep Will here and Commissioner Bott here OB4?
Sure.
Okay. OB4. Discuss the possibility of the city entering into one or more agreements with private parking facility operators in North Beach in order to increase the number of available parking spaces for North Beach residents. OB4. Yeah, it does sound very linked.
Yes, and it's been around for a little while, so I really just want to get an update for where we are now. it's frustrating that we are not making more progress on this. I know that the folks at the Sherry Frontenac have a lot that they would love to make a parking lot. It's not super helpful for that part, the northern part of North Beach, but it's an additional avenue. You know, there's the little multi-family unit across from 900 Bay Drive that has a huge parking lot and uses 10 spots out of the 40 or some odd that are there. And that owner doesn't want to be bothered with it. It's just really frustrating. So can you update me on where you are and if we can go back at some of these and, I don't know, maybe sweeten the pot a little bit or, you know, just.
So yes, so we have been actively looking into this. We just had a meeting the other day where it was two individuals actually wanted to buy our parking lots to build or talk about building parking structures on them.
I'm sorry, say that one more time?
We had two individuals come in and they were interested in buying parking lots to build parking structures on them with other developments.
I mean, when we talk about urban planning,
and so,
having all of these surface parking lots around our city is absolutely awful. If you just, well, I'd love your insight here, but I think that's one of the things that plagues Lincoln Road, right? It's not that we have not ample parking, right? We have 1,400 spots across the street. We have 600 spots at the New World Symphony, both around 50% utilization, New World Symphony even lower. And when we talk about traffic, it's because people assume, oh, they're programmed to think, oh, all my parking is at P26 and P27, so they just circle and circle until they can find that. It takes one ripping of the Band-Aid off of change in thinking, put people in the garage, or we could set up a valet and the valet parks it in the garage, and then we have a more utilized use of that space, whether it be around Lincoln Road or in other areas of the city. But no serious city now has the types of surface parking that we do.
yeah, I can only assume that the large amount of interestingly sized parking lots throughout the city have just happened over time, where the city acquired sites and, you know, the site, you know, served a purpose for something else, or it didn't serve a purpose for anything else, and so the city decided to have a parking lot there regardless of how small, how big. I don't disagree with you, for example, in the Lincoln Road. I think for one of the things that we could do a little bit better is when we are focusing on improving that garage, improving the technology, improving the cleanliness, is also improve the pathway from the garage to Lincoln Road. You know, there is an alleyway in between those right now. As far as kind of going back onto the bigger aspect, the one challenge when it comes to going to private entities to say, hey, we would like to utilize your parking lot for X. I did it all the time when I was on the private side. You know, we would say, hey, we want to do a revenue share. The challenge is that usually the juice isn't worth the squeeze for those property owners, because what happens is they open themselves up to liability if somebody trips on their property, even if we're operating the parking lot. And so if we say, hey, we're going to do a revenue share, we're going to pay you X, they just don't want to be bothered with it.
Can't we indemnify them so that we carry the risk?
I will defer to
Rick?
I apologize. The question again?
Can we, the city, not indemnify a private property owner if we do a revenue share parking situation so that we carry the risk and they don't?
The city does not generally indemnify. There are very limited circumstances in which we would. It would have to be a, you know, really significant public purpose to do so. Like, I think we indemnify if we are entering into an easement area to do work, etc. And here what we're talking about is valet operators. That would be
Or just parking?
just parking. I think that the better course would be for the private property owner to have adequate insurance, and then the city could potentially help cover that if that's the direction we want to go in.
And I could get with our risk management to get a better understanding of what those insurance levels would look like to make all parties feel comfortable. But that generally is the biggest challenge, is because when the locations that have these large parking lots, when we're talking about the kind of revenue, obviously because our rates are favorable to the area, it gets challenging to show any financial incentive to them on the private side. But that doesn't mean that we're not going to try. That doesn't mean we're not going to turn over every single stone that we can in this area. Because I agree with you, there are several, in the North Beach area, in the Sunshine meeting that Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez had regarding, everybody talked about the Publix parking lot after closing. Everybody talked about the Walgreens parking lot was always empty, and the Chase Bank parking lot. But when you go to these large corporations, they generally just aren't going to be receptive to things of that.
So in your memo, you have 6850 Bay Drive and municipal parking lot P89 with possible follow-up. Has there been further discussion since this was drafted? Because it seems like it's an older memo.
So it is, and so P89, there is a property that borders P89 that I had spoken with our team about to get a better understanding of exactly what we could do there regarding maybe not necessarily a garage, but for example, a single deck, because whereas you're not going to be burdened as much, it won't cost as much per space if you're talking about putting a deck overneath or over an existing parking lot.
So it'd be effectively 2 floors?
Essentially, yes. And I think there's some things we can do there that can be a little bit more economically sustainable while also providing a substantial footprint, because you would need less run. There's just a lot of benefits to a deck, and I mean also it also depends on what kind of growth we are projecting in the area, and I will kind of talk with our other internal departments to get a better understanding of what's going on over there, what's planning to go over there, and then what some of our internal requirements are, for example, on any new construction with parking minimums or things of that nature.
So to that end, there are a whole bunch of new buildings going up. And over the years, I've heard loosely, yeah, there will be public parking spaces available, et cetera. So I don't believe we have any leverage negotiating with people who are already permitted and working on building. But can we do a survey of what will actually be available, and would they be willing to have, a discounted resident fee, a few nights a week or all the time or whatever? Let's find out what that is going to be, what that universe looks like, and then figure out how we can maximize that. I mean, 72 Park is going live as we speak. So that should be the first one. And then there are 2 or 3 others that already have, machines on the lot. And then we have another, I think 7 or 8 in the background that are going to be over the next number of years. But if those 3 or 4 buildings would make a portion of their spots accessible for resident rates, that would alleviate a lot of issue. So let's try to find out comprehensively what it might be available.
Absolutely.
And then circle back, I don't remember the details with the Sherry Frontenac. I know they're interested in doing it. They had to meet certain requirements. I don't think they were super excited about the idea of spending the money to meet the requirements, but maybe that's something that could be revisited.
Well, go ahead.
No, sorry, go ahead.
No, you finish your thought, because mine was going to go off on a different tangent.
And yeah, just maybe come back to us with some details about putting what the cost is on putting a deck over some existing lots. Oh, Will, you started talking about somebody approached the city about buying some lots to do a mixed use, including parking. Tell us more about that.
Remember, yeah.
Aren't you glad you said yes to this job?
Absolutely. Absolutely, Commissioner.
Good afternoon, Alberto Ventura, Assistant Parking Director. We had a meeting with Mr. Brill, who was they're looking to buy the grocery store at the corner on Bay Drive. And
the Bay Supermarket?
Yes. And
that is a thriving, active business.
as well as the auto parts store. And since our parking lot is adjacent to that, making that a whole project where we would get additional parking there. So that was that was a conversation that we had last week with them.
What does the owner of Bay Supermarket have to say about this?
We don't know. They're the ones that wanted to speak to us in reference to that.
I mean, he's been there for 30 years, unless you find, not you, unless his location is moved to someplace equally awesome as that corner location, I think that would be a challenge.
Well, it seemed from them like they already had discussions and that there is interest in that.
So do they own the property, the Bay Supermarket?
They're looking to purchase it and then build.
Oh, Bay Supermarket is looking to. Okay, so perhaps.
Wait, Bay Supermarket?
Not Bay Supermarket, is a Presidente or something like that? The Tropical. Right next to La Vaca, where the auto parts store is at?
Yeah. Oh, so it's not the Bay Supermarket?
No.
Okay.
It's
it's a smaller supermarket on the other side?
on the
Okay.
other side.
Okay.
And because they're trying to purchase that supermarket along with the advanced auto parts store, and since our parking lot is adjacent to that, they wanted to do a whole project in that.
And what is their project comprised of?
So we didn't get too much into details with what the totality of the project was, because that was a little bit outside of our purview. I know they were talking about a few different things that they could do. We were really more focused on, obviously we have a set amount of spaces in I believe that's P89, or is that, yeah, P89. So we have a set amount of spaces on there. And then, they wanted to know from parking's perspective, what would be the things that we're concerned about should we lose that lot, because obviously we're talking about a place where we already have a parking deficit. So what would we need to have access to from the parking side for us to look favorably upon any type of development that went in where we actually had a net loss of parking? What would we gain on after the project was done? So that was really where our conversations were more headed.
Okay.
Who knows what that project is even being contemplated, but if it was some sort of multi-use project there that combines those three sites, what a great place for like an Aldi.
It'd be an amazing place for an Aldi. I'd be very excited. And also affordable housing.
Yeah.
That's exactly what we
I
needed.
envision maybe, housing on top and an Aldi on the bottom.
Yep.
So, but obviously, when
And parking in
anyone
between.
talks about removing, parking spaces out of a lot, our focus is going to be getting a net positive, no matter what, once any project is complete, because we're not gonna turn an area that's already a parking desert into a driving
More of a
desert.
parking desert.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I'll ask you to monitor, it's probably too early to do so now, but in some of these cities that are rolling out the Waymos and the robo-taxis and things like that, what impact, it has on their overall parking situation. As I understand it, maybe in Austin it was rolled out, and I think we'll have some societal implications, but the efficiency of some of the robo-taxis versus just the usual Ubers are very, very dramatic.
When I believe Waymo's hit Miami now?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know we can talk to our partners, across the water, talk to them about if they've seen any impacts on where it's being.
I don't think it's of a scale yet where we'd be able to see it in Miami, but I think it is more prevalent in some of the cities out west, right?
Well, yeah,
San Francisco.
Yeah, it's very big in San Francisco, and one of my stops before I came to the city of Miami Beach, I was with the DOT with Pasadena, and so I already have a very good relationship with some contacts in San Francisco with parking, so I can reach out to them shortly and get a better understanding if they've seen any impact in the operations throughout their community.
Yeah, excellent.
When you come back with your future update, would you be so kind as to actually update the memo, because this information is almost a year old?
Yes, ma'am.
I would appreciate that. That's not I didn't mean that as a snarky thing.
No.
I was just looking at it and I'm like, wait, but there's already updated information that wasn't reflected in here, so I think it's just because it's been rolled over so many times. So that would
Yes,
be
ma'am.
awesome.
Absolutely.
Thank
My pleasure.
So Chair, we'll show this item discussed and to return to FERC when appropriate.
you. Yep.
Thank you. Commissioner Bott, do you want to talk about the comprehensive plan on the west lots? NB10?
Sure.
Don't make me twist your arm.
Yep.
MB10, discuss a comprehensive plan to integrate underground cisterns within the west lots. MB10.
I always pick up a Scrabble word having a meeting with you, and I will be adding cisterns to that.
Cistern's a good one. So, you know, there's a lot of discussion about what's going to be happening with the West Lots. I think there's a lot of interest in doing passive kinds of updates to it so that it's not a lot of infrastructure on top, but it's flexible programming, things like that. But one of the things that we wrestle with, obviously, as a city and will continue to more and more is the rain bombs. And everything that we can do to help mitigate some of that damage and find more places for water to go. I was reading something about Copenhagen that literally has built tunnels to accommodate. They had a rain bomb, I don't know, a decade ago maybe, and they've been building tens of billions of dollars of damage to the city, and they're spending an equal amount in building tunnels that can fill up to hold the water until it dissipates. So I'm not suggesting that. I'm not completely delusional, but and I don't know if cisterns are the right device at the West Lots, and I don't know the mechanics of can we go in and build this prior to anything else happening, but there is literally and figuratively fallow ground there that can, you know, on the surface it can absorb water, but it is space that could be used to hold more water beside what it can naturally absorb. So let's hear what you got.
Good afternoon. Rodney Knowles, the Assistant Director for the Public Works Department. And I guess I'll start backwards. Regarding your statement about not knowing if cisterns are the right solution for this particular location. The department doesn't recommend the cisterns for a variety of reasons outlined within the memo, because we've done our study related to blue-green infrastructure, et cetera, and we believe that those solutions would probably be more appropriate as opposed to the cisterns due to the amount of excavation and cost required. Also building the infrastructure in order to collect, route, redistribute this water. Yes, the cisterns would be good to collect the first flush, which is usually the most contaminated portion of any rain bomb, any kind of moving water. But when you look at everything that goes into getting us there where we have the cisterns in the ground and maintaining that and creating the infrastructure required, it's not cost effective, and we believe that there are better opportunities out there, and that whatever is planned for the West Lots is part of a larger, more comprehensive water solution for the entire neighborhood as opposed to focusing exclusively on the West Lots. And we're also concerned about the dewatering that would have to happen in order to create the space to accommodate any decent sized cisterns in the area.
So what can be done without a huge amount of cost and without waiting for some kind of overarching neighborhood improvement project sooner rather than later? Is there anything that's out there that we can
The good thing is that because the West Lot's on the east side of the island, we have opportunities to explore some creative French drain solutions to collect a decent amount of the water. It's not a solution to totally eradicate the problem, but we have had a lot of success on the eastern side of the island just because of the amount of space between the water table and where the elevation is, where we can create that void. So that and some of the solutions in our blue-green master plan with permeable pavement, et cetera, to try and collect some of that. And even with any, let's say, for example, parking spaces, et cetera, that are created, and we were to use some kind of suspended pavement system, creating a bit of a void to collect that water underneath and let that percolate naturally, those are some of the opportunities that we could explore.
So how would the French drain help? Where does it collect to?
What the French drain is going to do is it's going to create this void that's probably backfilled with something like PROC 57 rock, where the water is collected in there and it eventually percolates into the ground. The trick with that is it's going to have to be built large enough, won't be able to get super deep, but large enough so that we're able to collect that and allow it to dissipate naturally. But we're at a challenge here in the city with regard to the amount of space between the water table and our collection point. It's tough.
But you said on the east side, we have the benefit of having a little bit more space
do.
naturally occurring.
As opposed to the west side, closer to the bay.
So if we were to do French drains on the west lots, how much water could that contain for us? How much of an impact would that have?
I don't have that answer right now, but we can look internally to explore what those options are and to try to come up with some, I guess, number for what that would look like.
Yeah, I think so. And I think we should figure out what the cost might be and what kind of resiliency grants might help defray some of this cost. I mean, we're scrambling in every way possible. And if there's something that could have a good size impact with a not outsized price tag that doesn't disrupt people's ability to get to and from their homes and to and from work, and it could make a difference in how we handle these rain events, I think that would be great.
Thank you.
Hi, Commissioner. But I love your idea about the cisterns, although it might not be the best solution because it would become a neighborhood project.
Right.
Building the collection system. I understood that you wanted to use it as irrigation, to irrigate. But anyway, so.
No, I wasn't thinking that.
Okay, so with the French drains here in the city, it's kind of tricky. With sea level rise, there's less and less space to put French drains. What we have an issue in parts of the city is the water is coming up through those
Right,
French
I understand.
drains and out and causing that sunny day flooding.
Right.
So I would not recommend any more French drains.
Even on the east side where we just heard that there's enough.
As sea level rises,
So are you saying there is no opportunity for improving what we have on the west lots?
Well, not on the front, but French drains, I would not recommend French drains.
Okay, so what would you recommend?
For the west lots, I don't have an answer right now for that, because anything that you would collect any water that you wanted to collect, you would have to build an infrastructure to collect that water and transport that to that location. And if you're putting storm drains, big storm drains, it becomes a neighborhood project because you have to relocate water, sewer, and then it just becomes a neighborhood project. You would put new sewer. It's just anything that you want to collect, it just becomes a big project.
If I may to
Yes.
assist, maybe perhaps if this item has evolved a bit, not about this particular solution, but the problem of drainage in the West Lots area is perhaps Public Works can come back and discuss. Because, we have a stormwater master plan. There are many projects, both NMPs and individual critical needs projects that are all, all competing with each other, of which currently most of it is not funded as of right now. But perhaps they can
Jason,
look at.
why is that not funded again? Remind us.
I think we'll be addressing utility rates in the next number of months, and hopefully we'll be able to move some of this forward.
Joe, wouldn't it be a great idea if we could find a way to fund that?
If I ran on the platform of resiliency, I would.
So perhaps is the Public Works can go back and review all of the projects that are in that area. Because I think part of the issue is that, not issue, but the positive is that that area is up on the coastal ridge. So it actually is probably some of the more elevated areas. So when it comes to dollars and allocating it, there's a whole list of critical needs and trying to hit the worst of the hot spots and things like that.
No, I
but
totally
let's
understand.
maybe they can go back and tell what is in the West Lots area that's in our plan and when it is programmed to be. And I think maybe that would to help, because it's really less about, because you here have a solution, but it's really the problem you're trying to
Right.
address. So maybe you can go back with that area and just discuss what NIPs or other critical needs stormwater master plan projects are in that area and when those are scheduled to be implemented. And so if that's okay, we'd return Public
Yep.
Works with that information.
That's
All right,
fine.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
believe Commissioner Dominguez is on Zoom. Would like to hear some of her items, one which you co-sponsored, Commissioner Bott. So let's hear NB 18.
NB 18, discuss, approve Deauville fines and lawsuit settlement. NB 18. It's my item.
Hi, everybody.
Hi, Laura.
All right, so the city, I'm hearing an echo. Is there something I need to do on my end not to hear that?
You're good. You're good.
Okay. The city reached a $6.3 million settlement related to the Deauville property with over 5.3 million stemming from special magistrate fines. And per the city policy, 20%, 1.07 million is required to be allocated to mass transit or capital acquisition costs. 30% of the fines, 1.29 million toward a one-time grant program to help nearby residents fund building repairs and special assessments for property owners in North Beach, north of 73rd Street. And this program will help homeowners in a historically lower income neighborhood get their fair share of the city settlement with the Deauville owners and prevent displacement of residents by preserving property values and preventing homes from getting special assessments and violations. The program will help keep people in their homes and stop the predatory buyers from buying up buildings that are falling behind on repairs and displacing the residents. Let me see, I think there was one final note. There's over 400 different building code violations for over 200 different properties that have been issued in North Beach, most of which are for unsafe structures. So this funding would really help a neighborhood in that needs it.
So I'll just add on to that as I preparing this item. I think the commissioner labeled it out all correctly with the 6.3, the paying off of the outstanding amounts to 5.3, and then the resolution that requires the deposit into a transportation fund. So leaving that net amount, I think her request was to utilize 30% of that for that one-time grant program to assist with funding repairs and special assessments surrounding buildings. That'd be $1.3 million. Just the administration just wants to reemphasize our large unfunded capital liens program going forward. We do note that we will be discussing our capital program this Friday. And there are a number of, I think be funding around 50% or 40%, I'm sorry, of our capital program for next year. And then we have on July 11th, our budget workshop, which will be dealing with operating items, both recurring and one time. And, I think as the chair has mentioned, we will have a little bit of a difficult budgetary season coming in. And I'm not sure, I guess this might be for Rick to find this. These payments would be made no matter the disposition of the final agreement. So I'm not sure if we're ahead of the curve here or not. These payments would be actually being made no matter what.
Yes.
Okay. So I think it's just an opportunity for the commission to really determine their best use. We know that there's a number of things in here. I mentioned in here the transfer of the Betsy Perez house is for some commissioners a very big priority, being purchased from the building fund. So there are some large needs in the budget going forward. So it's just something to consider. So whether you wanted to make that decision now or go through the budget process, wait for the funds to come in and make that determination on how you want to allocate that. But
So is this almost like a bifurcated item, Mr. CFO? Of course, I want to position the city to accept these fines, right, and get this money into the door. Are we able to essentially, is there anything that proactive action that's needed to do that?
No, the commission already approved the settlement agreement at the April 23rd meeting. Okay. This is purely about the possible use of a portion of the funds for the purpose specified in the memo to assist these homeowners.
The administration is just bringing the point that we're in our budget season and there's a long list of enhancements, non-funded capital projects that are requesting dollars in this upcoming year, and just wanted to make sure that maybe before some decisions are made on the allocation of those funds that in context, as I often talk about, that you see all of the things that are funded up. And I know think we still have briefings with the chair later today and Commissioner Bott tomorrow on our capital program, and you might want to see the totality of the budget process prior to making a decision on funding.
And break down the numbers of this one more time.
So it started at 6.3, and Commissioner Dominguez had it right on the.
Yeah, and I feel very strongly about this. I did have my briefing, and this is a small amount of money that's going to help over 400 buildings, potentially, if they apply for a grant to get approved, of course. In North Beach, they've been crying for help. Like, this is something that would be coming out of fines, and it's just a small percent that I'm requesting to be allocated to North Beach.
Please.
I'm very supportive of this, and I think that it is, in the grand scheme of our budget, I mean, $1 million is an enormous amount of money to me. I'd be happy to have it, but in the scheme of our budget, it's not a huge amount of money. And the residents in this area have been adversely affected since 2015, when the Deauville was let to start to deteriorate. And proportionately, these small grants to these 400 buildings will help stave off the predatory developers who are circling already in North Beach and looking to come in and buy up properties and turn them into things that will not be supportive of our naturally occurring affordable housing. So I think in the grand scheme of things, this is a very wise use of money, and I'm not being cavalier about the potential budget shortfalls that we may be facing as we face reduced tourism and other pressures. But I think this is a good shoring up of a community that has been affected for a decade by these derelict owners, and I think it is justice well served to help them with some of the proceeds from the owners' fines. I would move to support this.
And Mr. CFO, how would we do this? Do we essentially put this as a budget item for 2026?
I would see this, if this is the committee's recommendation, is that this would return to commission with a favorable recommendation to allocate 30% of the net fines for a one-time resident grant program to assist in funding and repairs and special assessments in the surrounding residential buildings. And then we would have to work to see how that would be allocated out. So if it was to be allocated, I'd have to see when the revenue is being recognized and see whether we would bring an amendment in the 25 budget or in the 26. I just have to.
Right, I think the proper way is to put this,
which has been, the purview of the FERC is to this could be sent to the committee to allocate 30% and to be considered as part of the 26 budget process. So that would allow it to be considered a priority of, the FERC. We would bring it to the commission for approval, or the timing wise, we'll make sure it gets in the agenda for the July 11th, at the very least, workshop, and it could be considered there.
I have a question though, if I may. I don't want to jinx it, but we typically have a delta at the end of our year for 25. And we'll have a little pot of money that didn't get spent or that we anticipated coming in lower than it did, right? We did last year.
At the end of, I think you're speaking about it in November when we bring the prior year closeout. If
Yes.
there's any general fund surplus, we have the city has a current policy on the use of those funds, which is to top off the city's reserves, make sure that we meet our 25% goal, and then the rest gets allocated to capital projects.
Could we not use some of that money to go towards this, so it doesn't have to be part of the 26 budget planning process?
That would be something to be determined in November, when that surplus would be discussed.
Can we bring this back if it's the will of the Finance Committee right now, with a favorable recommendation to the July commission meeting?
I'd be willing to do that and be on board as a favorable recommendation to be heard as part of the budget process. And I'm on board with this,
We can do is then we'll create this amount as a budget enhancement, and we'll make sure that gets considered and gets in front of the commission for them to make the final determination.
Great.
So we'll show it as a return to commission with favorable recommendation to allocate 30% of the net fines for one-time resident grant program to assist in funding repairs and special assessments in surrounding buildings to be considered as part of the 26 budget process.
Yeah, and I think where that's important and critical, right now we have a 6.9% property valuation expectation. If, God forbid, knock on wood, that totally comes in flat, we can reevaluate all of these things that we've sent to the budget, you know, what are the right amounts and things like that. So I think that that's good to have it as part of the overall mosaic.
Okay. And we'll show, because of the members here, we'll show Commissioner Bott making the motion, being seconded by Commissioner Magazine.
Guess we could do that for the remainder of the items.
Yeah.
Yes, and all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Commissioners, public comment.
Yes.
Larry Schaefer, please unmute yourself.
Hello, Larry Schaefer, 233 First Street. I'm reading through the supporting documentation for this, and the administration wants to emphasize that these funds could possibly be used for the purchase of 7605 Collins Avenue that we purchased for $6.5 million. And I don't want to take away from Laura's strong opinions on all this and where this is going, but I just want to say, wow, this is great that the administration is pointing out in this documentation that we might use this for something, that we need to resolve, which is the purchase of that and use of that asset at 7605 Collins. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry.
Just a reminder, Chair, we have a hard close at 1:30 because of neighborhoods, so we still have 20 minutes though.
Let's hear Commissioner Dominguez's other item, NB 15.
NB 15, referral to the Finance and Economic Resiliency Committee and the Quality of Education Committee to consider expanding the city's pre-kindergarten scholarship program to include options for 3-year-olds. NB 15.
Dr. Rosenfeld, how are you? Yep.
No, it's
I
not.
don't think,
No.
This item
Oh,
was an,
yeah,
do you want me
you know
to
what?
speak?
yep.
Yeah.
I just said that without even thinking.
Yes, Commissioner, you can kick it off.
Okay, so the city's current pre-K scholarship program covers 2.5 hours of pre-K schooling for 4-year-old kids. This acts as a supplement to the state's VPK program, which covers the first 3 hours of pre-K schooling, filling the gap for a full day of school. Currently, the city's pre-K program covers 219 kids with scholarships of up to $3,000 per student. The school-age population, birth to 19 in Miami Beach, has increased by 16% from 2013 to now in 2022, when it was last measured, 34.3%. So from 16% to 34%. The QEC committee passed the motion to support including 3-year-olds as part of the program.
Good afternoon, and thank you, Commissioner, for that summary. We currently do have a city-funded pre-K-4 scholarship, as Commissioner Dominguez indicated, for up to 219 children for the 25-26 school year, for up to 225 children in the 26-27 school year. The population, based on census information, has grown. The request was to consider funding for 3-year-olds. There is currently no universal program available for the funding of 3-year-olds. Miami-Dade County residents who meet the federal poverty level may avail themselves of the Head Start program potential funding and then the Children's Trust Families Forward funding. In both of those instances, the qualification is that they meet the federal poverty level between at 150% up to 300%. Per my conversation with the Early Learning Coalition in Miami-Dade County Public Schools, of the 2,405 children that currently participate in the Children's Trust Families Forward program, only about 24 live within our 3 zip codes, the majority of which are in the 33141 zip code, so they could potentially also be residents in North Bay Village. We didn't flesh that out, but only 24. So the current criteria for eligibility for the city's pre-K scholarship is that the child is age eligible, they're 4 years old when they enter pre-K, that they're registering for pre-K, and that the family is a resident upon application for the scholarship and throughout the year in which the child is receiving the scholarship. We currently have 27 pre-K providers who partner with us in this endeavor, and the program has grown substantially since its inception 4 years ago. Originally, we started with 57 scholarships. As the commissioner indicated, we are at 225 scholarships, so approximately a 77% growth, not only in students participating, but also in funding.
So if again, this program is one that's definitely, as the doctors mentioned, has grown significantly, over 400%, is now in the $700,000 per year range, as it were. So this is for pre-K, which is a formal educational system to get children ready, for kindergarten. Some of the concerns, if you go to the 3-year-old, is that Leslie, please chime in if I'm off here, is that there isn't in the educational system, the paradigm of education, there isn't a program really for 3-year-olds, right? Is it more of a daycare? And this is coming from someone like yourself who wasn't that many years ago, had my son at Rainbow down the street. The 4-year-olds was a pre-K school program. The 3-year-olds was more of a daycare, more of a situation. Obviously some educational elements that are in some of those providers. So there's just some kind of concerns related to that. And if you were to expand the, not the dollars, hopefully because we're, again, budgetary constraints, but if you expanded the availability to include 3-year-olds for daycare competing against 4-year-olds that are actually, getting educational programming, it could, what you could have is you'll have people that are maybe not getting that scholarship. Again, it's a scholarship, not a grant where everyone gets it, but traditionally what happens is that you'll have the applications that they come in higher. A lot of times the commissioner will see that there's 20 names that didn't, get on the funding list, and we'll try to do a motion to, expand funding. And this will just put more budgetary pressures on this program, which could have concerns on growth down the line. So.
And when we look at this as educational, if I recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, but I tried enrolling my daughter in this, and I actually won. However, her school wasn't a partner, so I wasn't able to avail myself of it. But it was almost born in the lens of economic development and attracting young families to our city. So it wasn't even so much as saying, well, we need to provide these educational enhancements, but it was recognizing that parents of young children needed to have daycare, education, whatever it may be, and what a great way to keep young families living in Miami Beach, where we don't have an ample amount of daycare providers. And this would be saying is a way, okay, if you're a young family living in Miami Beach, we'll give you this extra incentive to stay here. Here's this partial subsidy for your daycare responsibilities. What Doctor, can you quantify what's the amount for the pre-K per family? Is it like $2,700 per year?
The current scholarship has a value of up to $3,000. Of course, that's based on a multiplier of 2.5 hours a day, no more than $6.6 per hour for a maximum of 180 days. So if a school has less than 180 days, the value of the scholarship is less than $3,000. If the family pays less than $6.66 an hour, the value of the scholarship could potentially be less than $3,000. So there's variety there.
And given some of the budgetary restraints that we've talked about, and this is a program that doesn't currently exist, so any amount would be helpful. I don't want to say program, but a eligibility class. Would it make sense to have this program as broad as possible and say, maybe it's not $3,000, but $1,500 for 3-year-olds is still something, and then the parents have the extra incentives to stay in Miami Beach because the next year is an even greater enhancement of $3,000. So would that be a possible way to introduce the program? I'll kick that over to Commissioner Dominguez if she'd be open to something like that.
I missed the last thing. I would be open to what?
Given that the 3-year-olds don't have the eligibility now, essentially, and some of to keep this as broad as possible and to appeal to as many people as possible, for the 3-year-olds, having that amount that they qualify for, perhaps up to $1,500, and then keeping the
Yeah,
pre-K
yeah, yeah,
at
that's
$3,000.
So, so if I may, if the concept is to try to keep within our budgetary bounds of the amount that's funded, if you're speaking that, that you would expand the existing budget, but it would allow not only 4-year-olds, but also 3-year-olds to compete, but the 3-year-olds would get 1,500, is that?
For the same number of, for the same amount of money?
Right.
So
'cause I think-
currently, we're at $675,000, so if you have a child that's going into, if you win our lottery and your child's going to pre-K 4, they can have a scholarship up to $3,000, and if your child is going to a program for 3-year-olds, they could have a scholarship up to $1,500, and we just exhaust all funds up to this current 675 without adding additional?
I think we could look at this as a couple of different ways, and either way, it'll have to be evaluated in the 2026.
Well, if I may, it wouldn't, if we're not expanding the 675, then we wouldn't have to.
Yeah.
So if it's just to expand the eligibility, the number of people that can apply and win the scholarship, but if you happen to win the 3-year-old if you're a 3-year-old applying, you would get 1,500, and the next year you could apply and potentially get the 3,000.
Yeah.
But
If the will of the commission is to allow the family to receive the scholarship twice, it could also be one time. But that would obviously discourage families from applying for the 3-year-old, because they could potentially not receive the scholarship for their child when they're 4 years old. However, if they attend a school like Biscayne Beach Elementary, where there is no familial contribution, then they wouldn't be eligible for the pre-K 4 scholarship anyway.
yeah, so to remember that on the pre-K, a lot of the elementary schools, South Point, I went into the lottery for my son Jack, and we didn't make it there, so since we didn't get the free one at South Point, we had to find a private provider and pay out of pocket, which is where the scholarship would come into handy here. I think just from the administration's perspective, trying to do our best to manage within our budgetary means. Yeah. So if we're able to stick within the 675, but it's just a return to commission with a favorable recommendation to expand the eligibility criteria of the pre-K program to include also 3-year-olds, but 3-year-olds would only be eligible for up to a $1,500 one. I think that would not require going through the 26 budget process.
And how many children availed themselves to this?
So for the 25-26 school year, we have 219. When we ran the lottery in December, the scholarship cap was at 192, but because we had 27 families on the wait list, the commission decided, I believe in February, to provide additional funding so that every family that had won our scholarship could receive it. So we had 219, and then the commission also decided for the 26-27 school year to increase the scholarship count to 225. That's an up to $3,000.
Right, that was a one-time mid-year budget allocation for this year that would have to be considered in next year's budget, which is already listed as an enhancement for consideration.
And this is Commissioner Dominguez's item, so I'll let her run with where she wants to take this. But one possibility just came here off the cuff. We have roughly 200 families that availed themselves to this. If we would essentially do the pre-K, the 4-year-olds at $2,500, and then we could do $1,000 for the 3-year-olds, we would only need about $100,000 of incremental funding that we could put in for the 2026 budget.
Well, if again, you won't know until the applications come in at the end of the day, but that would, by doing that, you would make it more likely that we would be able to fill all of the applications. Again, this is supposed to be a scholarship program, not necessarily a grant. It was never anticipated that every single person that would apply would get it, but we've kind of worked out on it. And this is also why the program, when we talk about our budget growing, that program has grown by 400% in the past 4 years. So if the motion is to return to commission to expand the eligibility to also include 3-year-olds, but the scholarship would be $2,500 for 4-year-olds and $1,000 for 3-year-olds, and again sticking within our own budgetary allocation, that would not require any kind of budget consideration.
It would
be for the next funding year.
Right, but if we cap, are we still capped at 225, whether it's 2,500 or?
It wouldn't be numbers. It would just be based on dollars. It would just be till all the dollars are allocated.
Yeah, I think it would only be right where if we're looking to expand this to a lower age, that we would look for some sort of budget enhancement or top-up. But if we would lower that $3,000 amount to $2,500 for the 4-year-olds and then expand the 3-year-olds at a lower number, like $1,000, that wouldn't be such a consequential budget. It might be somewhere in like the $100,000 range.
We wouldn't, I mean, we wouldn't know until the actual applications are put out there. When do?
Or we could say we just cap the number at the amount of people that were accepted last year.
Well, it gets mixed is because you have two different funding. I think what Les is getting to is you don't have one number now, you have two numbers. So you don't know what your mix is going to be. You could have just a few 3-year-olds, you have a ton of 3-year-olds.
Right, but we could say, okay, for both of those, you're capped at 220 individuals, which is what we've had in years past, and the 4-year-olds will get $2,500 up to 220 of them. The 3-year-olds up to 220 will get $1,000, and rough back of the envelope calculation, that would result in a budget enhancement of about $100,000.
Right, it's a budget enhancement.
Yeah.
It's an up to amount.
Yep.
So we because what the family pays is part of the process of consideration. Again, if the family is paying less, then at the end of the year, the remaining funds, there would be funds technically available.
Yep.
But we just don't know until they've selected their school, been enrolled, and we know what they're paying.
And Commissioner Dominguez, I know I kind of wrestled that item from you. It's easy to do here in person. I apologize. How amenable would you be to something like that, where we do something along the lines of like $100,000 budget enhancement? We bring down the amount slightly for the 4-year-olds, but that way we could greatly expand it at albeit a reduced amount for the 3-year-olds. Is that something you're open to?
Yeah, I think that would work out well. This is something that Beverly Heller and the QEC were very passionate about. And so when I saw it in an LTC, that's why I sponsored it. And I believe you're even a co-sponsor.
Yes.
So good with that. And thank you for hearing my items.
Thank you.
Just for some clarification, so this is for the 26-27 school year.
Correct. So you're
have-
going to add another wrench into things?
We're that far out. And I
That's how
ask
this
that
works.
because we actually will promote the opportunity beginning in September for the 26-27 school year, and we will run our lottery in December. So we would need to make sure that the community was aware that this opportunity existed, because they would be submitting their applications alongside everybody else from September to December.
So the number was 220 or 225?
Well, currently, by resolution, the number of pre-K scholarships we have for 26-27 is 225 pre-K 4 scholarships.
That's without the enhancement that would be considered. The base budget is 220?
The other thing that we could do,
I think it's
right,
225.
is we can advertise initially until we know we have extra money in here. We say our cap is the exact same amount of children that received it last year. And it's not as if there's a child that received it last year and they're expecting the same amount, because right now it's just a one-time thing. So it's a totally unique population every single year. We could say we're expanding this. The 4-year-olds this year will get $2,000. The 3-year-olds will get $1,000. And then if we're able to get a budget enhancement of, let's say, $100,000, then we can increase. We could either expand the pool or increase the amount that the 4-year-olds receive to $2,500.
Sure.
Commissioner of Public Comment?
Yes.
John, please unmute yourself.
Thank you very much, Wayne from South of Fifth. I'm listening to this, and Joe, you are a father, and I saw your kid grow up. Not that she's grown up completely at this point, but she's older at this point. And I just think that Miami Beach deserves an effective daycare system. And the budget at $600,000 for this program is inadequate. And it should include 3rd and 3-year-olds or 4-year-olds in the process, not just 1 and 2-year-old daycare. It should be for early learning. And we spend $1 billion, $1 billion. And we spend $600,000 on this program to educate and take care of our working parents or kids. It's insane. And I think allocations should be redirected. We have 2,400 employees. That's 1 or 2 employees less out of 2,400. Where are we spending our money? How are we spending our money? Is more important than, the upcharge from 150,000 to 600,000 in expenses. We're still underspending what we should to raise our kids. Thank you very much.
Wait, and as somebody that doesn't currently have a young child that's being raised in Miami Beach, you still care passionately for education and the well-being of our next generation. So I thank you for that. I remember fondly the picture of you and my daughter Capri outside of Whole Foods when we were campaigning. But I agree with you. It's the old adage, show me your budget, I'll show you your priorities, whether that be a city, a company, or anything like that. So I think that's a great starting point until we know we can get a budget enhancement where we say for the 4-year-olds, $2,000, the 3-year-olds, $1,000, and then if we can get an incremental $100,000 in the budget process this year, then we expand the amount that the 4-year-olds get.
Okay, I'm going to try to get it under the line here. Return to commission with a favorable recommendation to modify the pre-K scholarship program for $2,000 per four-year-old at 20 students, and up to $1,000 per 3-year-old up to 220 children, with an approximate $100,000 budget enhancement for consideration during the 26 budget process.
Commissioner Bott, I know I cut you off there. Please go ahead.
Yeah, I would fully fund this every which way we can, so I'm super supportive, and if we can find a way to do more in future years, you know.
And we will show Commissioner Bott making that motion. We'll show the second being Commissioner Magazine.
So we're going to put in for an additional $100,000 enhancement.
I think it's 195 or 105. I was doing the calculation real quick. That's why I used the word approximate, but it should be.
And just for clarification, because I will be asked, if a family receives a scholarship for their child at 3, would they still be eligible
Yes.
to receive the scholarship at 4?
Yes. Yeah.
Fine.
Okay. So all in favor?
Aye.
All right. We'll show the motion passed 2-0, and we're 30 seconds over.
Thank you.
All right. So we'll show the meeting adjourned. Thank you.